Shalom, shalom, everybody. Today I want to play some of this video that Dr. Brown did addressing Dante Fortson and different claims made by different Israelites, many whom we've heard of before and whom we've encountered before. And I'm going to do my best to be fair and not bore you guys. Shalom, Abu. Oh man, perfect. Going to listen to this during my commute home, sharing now. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, make sure y'all share this. And whoever wants to come up, let me know and I'll drop the link. You can come up, make comments or whatever. But without too much talking, we're gonna get right into the video. I'm gonna make some notes. And stop here and there to make a few comments, ask a few questions, and then carry on. But thank you guys for tuning in. Let's get started.
So, who exactly are Ashkenazi Jews? What's our connection to ancient Israel as Jewish people? What's our genetic identity? This is a discussion that comes up a lot. A lot of Hebrew Israelites refer to us as fake Jews and things like that. So, I want to take some time to unpack this, but I want to interact in particular with one video that was posted on the YouTube channel of Dante Fortson. Mr. Fortson, if you're watching this, I think you'll see I'm going to interact in a respectful way as watching your video. It seems that you're seeking to interact in the same way as seekers of truth. And both of us do not believe in a race based salvation. So we affirm those things clearly. But the question of identity is very important. Has a Black history been hijacked by whites or things being misrepresented? These things should be looked at. Now what's interesting is that there are folks who watch my debate with Sakari leader, Guerrilla Hebrew. And of course, many in his camp that he did wonderfully. That I knew was going to happen before we started. No matter what I said, they would say he did a great job. But there are many others who said, "Why'd you pick that guy? He can't debate. He didn't know what he was talking about. Why don't you debate Ron Dalton? Why don't you debate Dante Fortson?" So that's where I began to see these names come up. Now I'm not here challenging everyone. I want to debate you, and it's not like some macho kind of thing. This is in the interest of seeking truth. I left the door open that if anyone contacted me, who is a recognized leader in the Hebrew Israelite camp, and we could agree on a subject matter and format, that I'd be happy to do a debate. So that hand of invitation is open. Should any of these gentlemen, Ron Dalton, Dante Fortson, want to have a public or private dialogue debate, we can agree on subject and format, I'd be very happy to, for the sake of truth and for the honor of the Lord. I want to say this, though, up front. The first book of Dante's I just bought was this one. I hope to get some more. Undeniable, Full Color Evidence of Black Israelites in the Bible. And towards the front of the book, page 5, Dante says this: "The claim that there is no evidence of a Black Israel are always made by people that haven't bothered to look for any of the evidence. They'll often repeat what they've been told to believe, but the truth is that there's lots of evidence, both biblically and historically, that back up why many of us believe Israel was and still is Black." So here's where I want to take exception to what you said. I have looked at the evidence carefully. For sure, the original Israelites weren't white. We understand that. And Jesus himself wasn't white. He wasn't a white European. And I've written and talked about the European Christian hijacking of Jesus, where the Jews are like these demon figures and Jesus is this handsome white European and things like that. So by all means, let's look at the original identity of the people of Israel. But I'm quite sure historically that they weren't Black either, and that there's nothing in the Bible that says as a people they were Black. And this is having studied it, looked at it. I have other colleagues who work closely with African American churches who look in the scriptures.
So, even starting out, Dr. Brown is being pretty fair and balanced and nuanced with his statements here, because he is correct that even the genetic papers will show you that in that region, like for example, David Wright's Southern Arc paper, in the supplementary, there's another paper in there that points out the different skin tones and hair textures and eye textures of the people in the Southern Arc. So they weren't black people as we would know, African Americans to be today. So he is correct.
For an African presence, and they also do not believe that Israel was originally black or Jesus was black or the apostles were black. So that's where I take exception. Don't say that the claims are being made by people who haven't looked for themselves. I have. I've looked carefully. And here, let's just talk candidly for a minute about blind spots, all right? When I was in college, I had a Christian friend, black Christian friend, who went to pretty much an all black church in Brooklyn. And we would hang out together. We were people of like heart. So he invited me to a church service there. And to my surprise, there was a mural on the wall, and it was Jesus and the apostles, and they were all black. I remember saying to him, "Why'd you have? I mean, that's not accurate." And he said, "Well, it's just a point of identification. And you look at a high school yearbook, the first thing you look for is your picture. So we want people to be able to identify. Here's my blind spot. If they had all been white, it wouldn't have fazed me. That would have been wrong also, right? But that wouldn't have fazed me because I grew up, didn't even think twice about it. So, Dante, if that's okay to call you by your first name, I'm all in for the search for real identity and for accuracy in presentation. And I fully recognize that a lot of things get whitewashed over the centuries, and that Jesus has been made into this lovely European guy, etc. So I share that with you, and I understand if you feel that something's been stolen or heritage has been stolen, that you want to take it back. Above all, though, I want to emphasize this: my identity is being in Jesus, in Yeshua, a child of God, forgiven, washed with the blood. It's my life experience that I'm raised Jewish, grew up in a Jewish home, was bar mitzvahed, that my dad grew up Jewish, that his dad grew up Jewish, that his dad before that grew up Jewish as far back as we can trace it, and some of them very religious going back. So that's just my life experience. But who I am, what makes me tick, the core of my being, is that I'm a child of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And I welcome all others who are children of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And it could well be that there are as many as a couple 100,000 Black Jews in America today. That could well be. But we're going to unpack this. We're going to look at this together. We're going to take some time. So sit back, enjoy this, stop and start the video as you need to, check references. And again, the desire is to glorify the Lord and pursue the truth. Okay, so let's just take a moment and start with scripture. I want to read to you from Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10, this is the table of the nations that we have after the flood, beginning in verse 1. Ve'elu toldot b'nei Noach, Shem, Ham, v'Yafet, v'yoldu lahem banim achar hamabul. So these are the lines of Shem, Ham, and Yafet, the sons of Noach. Sons were born to them after the flood. Then it says b'nei Yafet were who? They're listed: Gomer, Umagog, Umadai, V'Yavan, V'Tuval, Meshech, V'Tiras. And the descendants of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tuval, Meshech, and Tiras. And then Uvene Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifat, V'Togarma. And the descendants of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifat, and Togarma. So Ashkenaz is listed here as what? A descendant of not Shem, not the Semites, but Yafet. All right.
Shalom, Ivory.
Hey, shalom. I got here about 6 minutes late, but what has he said so far? Can you sum up the past 6 minutes?
Yeah. So, Dr. Brown, he has Dante Fortson's book Undeniable. I'm not sure if it's the first one or the second one because he does have two undeniable books, Dante Fortson. And he read a quote from page 5 of that book, and then Dr. Brown just went in to say that the Israelites, ancient Israelites, wouldn't have been, black or white, like as in European white. They wouldn't have been neither of these. Just to summarize what he said so far.
Okay, I'll agree with Dr. Brown then on that part. If he's saying that they were neither population, then yeah, that makes sense. Although I would add in that you could sprinkle in a few like black and white types of people in the ancient Levant, but if you're saying that for the most part the Israelites are like a brown, a medium brown skin tone, a dark brown skin tone, then yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he started out very nuanced, really, in his argument off rip.
Okay. Yeah, I see no issue then. All right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you joined me though.
Yeah, I was gonna go live earlier, and then I said, wait a minute, somebody else is going live. I better not go
Oh
live.
yeah, we might have two lives going on, but hey, the more the merrier. Hopefully, more James will pop in here soon. But this is a good one. I saw all of this on Berean, and I'm just kind of writing down my thoughts as I rewatch it here with everyone else.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the Berean one yet. Like I was busy today, but this is my first time watching the full thing.
All right, well, I'm gonna shut up, and I'm gonna let y'all enjoy this.
All right. Now, the question is, who's Ashkenaz? Does Ashkenaz in the Bible have anything to do with Ashkenazi Jews? Okay. So now that's like another reference to the same Ashkenaz, Jeremiah chapter 51, beginning in verse 27, starting with the Hebrew word Su'u Nes Ba'aretz, Tikush Shofar Bagoyim. So raise a standard on the earth, sound a horn among the nations, appoint nations against her. This is the fall of Babylon. Assemble kingdoms against her, Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. So this is a totally different group of people now, right? This nation, this people called Ashkenaz, nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Jewish people. Well, who are they? If you will look at virtually every major Bible dictionary, Bible encyclopedia, here's what you'll find. I'm going to read to you, for example, from the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary, one of the most respected Bible dictionaries, multi-volume. Who is Ashkenaz? Here's what you see. The first descendant of Gomer, who is the first offspring of Japhet in the table of nations. In Jeremiah 51:27, Ashkenaz appears along with Ararat and Mini as a kingdom called upon to oppose Babylon. The name is identified with the Neo-Assyrian Ishkuza, who appeared between the Black and Caspian Sea in the 8th and 7th centuries BC, driving out the Cimmerians. And it goes on. Who are they then? For Herodotus, so a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society, they disappear, they're all gone a couple thousand years ago. Here's another Bible dictionary, Erdman's Bible Dictionary. Ashkenaz, the eldest of the three sons of Gomer, the son of Japhet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom, and then also referencing Assyrian, so Akkadian, Ishkuza. The connection to the Cimmerian invasions accounts for its relation to Gomer. Aligned themselves with the Mani, the Scythians revolted against Assyria in the 7th century BC, but were afterwards conquered by the Medes and the Persians in 538. They provided contingents of troops for the Persian attack against Babylon. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with the Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany. They looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10 and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Now, here's why I'll say, Dr. Brown, I would have liked for a source or a couple of sources on this migration story, even um, you know, just a little bit to put some more meat behind that Ryland uh migration, story. Um, I liked how he he defined Ashkenaz, how it's used in the Bible. He used a Bible dictionary. Okay. Um, he he mentioned, he read a source that mentions the Scythians. Now, Avery, what do you know about the Scythians?
The Scythians, they're a Indo-Aryan or Indo-Iranian population that was in Central Asia, and then they spread from there to different parts of the Near East and further in Eastern Asia, also into Eastern Europe as well. But yeah, they're a specific Indo-Iranian ethnic group, mixture of East Asian peoples as well. But yeah, I know in ancient times they're called Ashkuj and Ishkuj and Ashkenaz or something like that in the Assyrian tongue, because apparently a community of Scythians may have had like a either outpost or resided in like northern eastern Anatolia. But but other than that, in terms of their Y-DNA chromosomes, for what I've seen, I think Scythians will carry R1A, maybe some R1B and stuff like that.
Laban says Ashkenaz being located in Germany has long been debunked. It was historically on the northern Iran Kurdistan region. Um, Ramal is said Yo said that that's like his name being Brown and him not being Brown. GTFOH. Oh, Scythians became Turks and other Aryans or Aryans. I might be saying that wrong. They would be R1A.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought. Yeah. Where most of Ashkenazi Jews descend from, you're gonna have to. Oh, okay, okay. You're connecting that with your above statement. So, gotcha.
No.
Yeah. So I would like some sources from Dr. Brown on that migration story. Just not to say that he's incorrect, because I've heard that been spoken to. The brother Rue told me a similar thing years ago, actually, about Ashkenazi Jews and Gomer. So I've heard that migration and oral history before. But I wonder if there are sources that also say the same thing.
Yeah. I can't
That's something
speak
I
to
would look into.
I can't speak partly to what he's referring to, because basically what he's saying, from what I get, is that the reason Ashkenazi Jews call themselves Ashkenazi is because they settled in a area in Europe where they believed Ashkenaz, the son of Japheth, may have settled, and so they just dubbed it Ashkenaz and named themselves after the land, which seems to be something that Israelites typically do when they go to foreign lands. They name themselves after that land in the sense that we are the Jews in the land of Ashkenaz. Another example for this is Beta Israel, or the Ethiopian Jews. Ethiopian Jews call themselves, oh, I just said it, Ethiopian Jews. But we know that in terms of their culture and even some of their Y-DNA chromosomes, they do go back to the Levant. Not saying all of them, but there is a portion of them that do have Levantine origins and Middle Eastern DNA. And so we wouldn't say that all Ethiopian Jews are actually just, Hamites and they're actually just Ethiopians. No, we'll say that a lot of them descend from Israelites that would have went to Ethiopia. So using that same logic with the Ashkenazi Jews, all they're saying is that we descend from Israelites that went into Germany or into the Rhine or into the land of Ashkenaz. Like, sure, some of us could have converts among us that became part of the Jewish Commonwealth, but we also have those of us that would descend from the Israelites. I'll use another example, like when it comes to Mizrahi Jews. Mizrahi Jews call themselves that, dubbing it after Mizraim, which in Hebrew is Egypt. And I know we wouldn't say that every single Mizrahi Jew is an actual Egyptian Hamite that converted. No, some of them could legit be Israelites that went into Egypt, which we have tons of records and scriptures of, and they just settled there and named themselves after the land. So, so
Yeah.
applying that logic to every other Israelite population, we shouldn't try to discount the Ashkenazi Jews and then reconfirm the other Jewish populations and say, yeah, they're cool, but the Ashkenazi ones are the only ones that have to descend from Germans.
Okay, interesting. There was something earlier that he said, about the different colors and things, and I wanted to point everyone to this paper right here that came out the 25th of August 2022. It's called A Genetic Probe into the Ancient and Medieval History of Southern Europe and West Asia. Okay. Where is Western Asia, Avery?
Western Asia is basically the Middle East. That's just another way of saying the Middle East because it's west of like you got Central Asia, which is like Kazakhstan and Russia. Then you got East Asia, which is China. So what's west of all that? It will be the Middle East. Yeah,
Can
Iran,
you
Syria. Yeah.
would you say this is an accurate depiction of Southwest Asia,
Yes.
Western Asia?
Yeah, that's West Asia. Yeah, Southwest Asia, West Asia. Yeah.
So this is a region that the paper is talking about, and so in this paper, um, it has this chart. Okay, in this chart, I like this chart because it has the years before present in the thousands on the bottom here, and then it has the different colors of skin. And yeah, we're gonna go into a little skin doctrine right now, but this is the geneticist's skin doctrine. All right, this is David Reich's skin doctrine. um,
Facts.
so look at here, 2,000 years before present. All right, you got really, really pale skin, really, really pale skin at the very top. You got the pale skin pink up there. All right, but when you get to what's this right here, about 9,500, 9,800, something like that, where you just have, dark to black and intermediate skin color in this region, in the Southern European and the West Asian region. And this is from, again, a genetic probe into the ancient and medieval history of Southern Europe and Western Asia. And so if you're thinking, all right, what does intermediate looks like? What say ye, Ivory? Am I tripping, or does this look a little bit like intermediate?
Yeah, it looks intermediate. Yeah,
What about this? Is this pale?
that's not intermediate. That's I forgot his name, but yeah.
That's Thor Giantsbane or something. Tormund Giantsbane, but he's pale. All right, on this chart you see pink up here at the top, all the way from 0,000 years before present, and then like like earliest or latest it pops up is like 9,805, something like that, 1,000 years ago in this region, not the world, this region,
Hmm.
right? What about dark to black skin?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
black skin.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so pale skin showed up in the Southern European and Western Asian region, according to this paper, give or take 9,500 years ago, uh, give or take some hundreds of years on that. And then you just have intermediate people. You have dark to black skin. You got black skin people.
Mm.
Okay, and they aren't necessarily related just because they all have different shades of brown skin, but they're in this region. And pale people are in this region too for thousands of years, just not 10,000 years ago. Their ancestors were intermediate, dark brown, and black, skinned, not African American black, because African Americans have a different genetic makeup than the people and the ancient peoples in this region. So I just wanted to point that out since we are talking about the people in this region. Anything else you would like to add?
Now you covered it pretty well.
I
Israelites
gotta step
basically
up
would
my
have been
game.
intermediate.
Yeah, they really would have. I need to get a better picture though for them. But all right, so let's continue and listen to Dr. Brown. But yeah, again, I like so far. I like his argument and the way he's approaching this. The one critique I have so far is that I would like sources for the migration story and the Rhineland and the Gomer and the Germany. Um, and I liked how he defined Ashkenaz in the Bible.
or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name. When my grandfather came over at Ellis Island, the name got shortened to. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Yafet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works, you'll find the exact same thing. Okay, so let me share with you, in my debate with Guerrilla Hebrew, what I presented there.
It sounds like a person on repeat, but again, yes, we should go and check the sources and everything like that, but the burden of proof is on the person making the claim, and obviously Dr. Brown knows this, so that's the only point I'm gonna make on that. Shalom, Brother Moore.
Yeah, shalom.
Shalom, man.
What say ye? What are your thoughts so far?
I'm just catching up. I haven't even fully watched the video and whatnot. I saw that Avery dropped the video in the Facebook Messenger and whatnot. I see the subject matter and whatnot. If y'all want to catch me up to speed, go ahead.
Okay, I will.
Recap.
So, Dr. Brown has Dante Fortson's Undeniable book. I'm not sure if it's Undeniable 1 or Undeniable 2.
Okay.
Okay, and so he read a direct quote from his book on page 5, and I'm gonna paraphrase the quote that he read. Essentially, in the book, Dante is saying that no, everyone who says that Black people aren't Jews or the original Israelites is because that they haven't looked into the claim fully, or looked into the claim at all, something along those lines. It's on page 5.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Brown says that that is not accurate. He has looked into it carefully, and he has continued to look into it carefully. He's asked scholars and geneticists to review his rebuttals. And so he speaks on that he don't believe that the Israelites were white, as in, European, blonde hair, blue eyes, white, or black. They would have been brown skin, Middle Eastern people. He talks about Ashkenaz. He gives the biblical definition for Ashkenaz. And then he gives the migration story from the Rhineland to Germany. Gomer, Germany connection for Ashkenazi Jews. And he explains how the biblical Ashkenaz is different from Ashkenazi Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And he read a source about the connecting the Ashkenaz, biblical Ashkenaz, to like the Scythians and etc.
Okay.
Is that about right, Avery? Or did I miss something? I feel like I missed
No, I
something.
think that covers it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be really intrigued to not that it really matters in terms of like at the end of the day salvation and that type of stuff, but I'd be really intrigued to understand what Dr. Brown classifies as like brown skin Middle Eastern, like what kind of phenotype he puts that with, or what range he puts with that. I think that would be very intriguing to get into, because I think a lot of times when African Americans address this concept of phenotype and color or whatnot, they just throw like anything under the sun underneath black, right? Anything from high yellow to blue black becomes black, right? And so I think it becomes very important to distinguish, to get more, I think, more scientific with the phenotypes and how we break things down, in terms of skin gradation, in terms of facial features, in terms of like all that type of stuff, just everything that goes into a phenotype and whatnot, versus coming into like a scholastic conversation with a lot of just street vernacular and a lot of colloquial understandings of things.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be nice if you showed images of people, so I can know what he means by when he says the things that he say concerning phenotypes.
We haven't got there yet. Not phenotypes, but haplogroups. He later on in this video he speaks on the Kohanim, and he doesn't make a distinction between the haplogroups and the Kohanim markers. So I would have questions there too, and I'd love more if once we get there, if you could speak more on that, considering you had a debate with Kevin G, was it?
Yeah.
On the Kohanim. So I'm looking forward to you guys' opinion on this, because this was a very good video.
That's what's up.
It's coming up.
In terms of DNA and Ashkenazi Jews. When I was explaining after the fictional made up 12 tribes chart and why that's bogus, and you could spend hours and hours demolishing it, there's not a scintilla of truth in it. But it was now time to briefly explain why Ashkenazi Jews are, in fact, legitimately Jews, part of the larger people of Israel, right? Along with Black Jews, along with Sephardic Jews, along with Mizrahi Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, and yeah, all part of the same people. When people say, well, Brown, when did this ever happen to Ashkenazi Jews? This is part of the people of Israel. My history goes back to Egypt. If you're a Black Jew, legitimately in Israel, your history goes back to Egypt when we were in exile. Our history goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, and then as we're scattered around the world, as we'll see in a moment, intermarriage and other things, skin colors change, complexity change, other things change. We'll explain that, and DNA confirms all that. So here's what I wrote. First proof: DNA confirms the authenticity of Ashkenazi Jews. As for the most comprehensive recent DNA study of Ashkenazi Jews, spearheaded by geneticists from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Harvard Medical School, and published November 30th, 2022, it confirms that we can trace our lineage back to first century Jewish communities in Italy, which would include those sold as slaves into Rome, as well as earlier Jewish communities there, which Acts mentions. So I can trace my lineage back to the first century, and from there back to ancient Israel as an Ashkenazi Jew, as a Jewish person with a mixture of European descent along the line.
I'm sorry, I had to stop right there for a second. He got me thinking, okay, now, Italian Jews, what haplogroups were among these Italian Jews? Because he giving massive yap vibes. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah, but let's take it to the side right quick. So he's saying that this confirms Ashkenazi Jewry and whatnot, right? And so at first, like people are like, well, how does this confirm anything? Because there's no body of Jacob or Abraham they're going back to, or they're connecting the Ashkenazi to or whatnot. They're using genetics to connect them to a population that claims to be Jewish, right? I think that's an important point to understand, because I think that's a very smart way to connect yourself to Jewry, right? I think this whole concept of trying to find like a pure bloodline or whatnot is gonna, like, unless you actually have the body of Jacob or Abraham or such or whatnot, like or patriarch that you can identify 100%, right? You're stretching things a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, I agree.
And so, like, something I know a lot of us talk about is like your best bet is to try to tie yourself to a population that has an oral history that goes back to this, if that's something that you're interested in. Right? So I actually commend how they're doing that concept, because they're not saying that they're confirmed as being the blood lineage of Jacob and whatnot. Because no, they're saying that they're confirmed in being connected to a people that claim to be Jewish and whatnot. Right? And that's at best what I think.
So wait a minute more. I'm sorry to cut you, but that sounds like they're not demarcating other people just to validate themselves.
Facts. And to camel back off that, says, at best, that's the only argument we can make as African Americans and whatnot, right? Is connecting ourselves to a people with oral history to this thing. Again, because we have the lack. Like, this is where people say, "Well, you don't have Jacob's DNA." No, we don't. And so, like the sis said, like at this juncture, we can't demarcate people in either direction. They can't demarcate us, and we can't demarcate them. Right? But like the question is, like, so what methodology you're using? And what we're talking about a lot of times is connecting yourself to a people and whatnot, right? And that's something that when you go through the methodology, when other Jews around the world can respect and they can understand and whatnot, right? This whole like, well, I'm the real Jews and you're the fake Jews, blah blah whoop, when it like, bro, that no one's gonna respect that.
Now the brother Covey. Oh, go ahead, Avery.
I'll try to make this quick, but also what he said about the Exodus. He said a little bit of something. I'm going to kind of paraphrase, but he said somewhere on the lines of that we will both connect back to the people in the Exodus if we are all Israelites. And I think that's a very interesting statement because in terms of trying to figure out, who could be part of this ancient Israelite cluster or this ancient proto-Israelite gene pool, the Exodus is definitely key when it comes to showing how certain types of people could have been part of the Commonwealth of Israel. I'm not talking about a straight paternal line. I'm just talking about people who could have been amongst the Israelites and then been at Mount Sinai to become part of Am Israel. So that Exodus statement is very interesting. I think that's something that's very key that we need to look into.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's even
blew up a lot of heads. Yeah, I almost didn't catch that, and it's my second time watching it. That's a good point.
facts. It's also important to go back to because like so once you become part of the nation of Israel, this whole tribal like this whole emphasis on being part of the tribal thing it's not there, fam. Like this whole like this uber focus on like okay, can you like we got to prove we go back to Jacob boy now, fam. Do you do things in terms of like fathers lineage? Oh sure, I ain't even tripping on that thing. Like that's a way of identifying people. Cool, that's how you number yourself. Straight, not even mad at that, right? But like my man's tying himself back to like the mixed multitude, right? Talking about this whole Egyptian concept, right? Like that's we're talking about national Israel at that juncture, not tribal Israel, like that, right? Once you become part of national Israel, like that whole the tribal national, like it all disappears, fam. It's one law, it's one culture, it's one way of doing things, and that's why you're not hearing the demarcation. That's why you can hear Dr. Brown talk about like, well, if this is your history, this is our history. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we got to understand as as Americans and as Israelites in America, where we sound crazy making arguments to where we're trying to demarcate people from a nation that doesn't demarcate people like that.
Yeah, that's facts, And I can't help but think about, Brother Covey, who did his DNA and found out that he was Israel, and now he, did his baptism with Elder Green's church, and he's walking in his messianic Israelite way, he connected back to Sephardic Jews, and he found documentation of his people, and his last name and things like that. Like we should definitely reevaluate methodologies and find the best methodology that proves your point and not just slap some things together.
Yeah, and if you're starting off with the whole like the whole reason why I'm the people is because you're already not doing this thing on the scholastic. This is already an emotional argument for you. You know what I'm saying? And that's you're so like the sis talked about the brother Kobe. He tied himself to his own family history, oral traditions and whatnot, understanding that. Then went steel manded with understanding like double checking the paperwork, etc. Whatnot. Then doing DNA and stuff like, well, okay, I'm really connected to certain things, right? Like that's one thing, right? This whole spiritual DNA test, fam. Like we can never expect anybody to ever respect that one scholastic, and we should.
Yeah, because at a certain point we have to start making better arguments because you have people like Dr. Brown, and then you're going to hear in a minute what other scholars who Dr. Brown reached out to said about some of these arguments that are made by Israelites. Like, we just as a community have to do better at making better arguments. Unless y'all got any final comments, I'm gonna start playing the video.
Okay, real quick. I'm gonna demarcate real quick. You said we as a community. I'm not claiming them Negroes, fam. I'm not claiming. No, I can't do it. There's too much nonsense going on. Do you understand that me and Ebri was on? You know what I'm saying? Bereans yesterday with a dude talking about that A and B was Ham, or excuse me, A and B was Shem, E was Shem, and R1B was Ham.
I'm sorry, what?
One more time, sis. And this is why, you ain't gonna lump me up with these cats. You know what I'm saying?
Headache.
Because we was having a real serious conversation. Do you understand? We're trying to walk through this dude's paradigm. He's telling us that A and B is Shem, E is Shem, and R1B is Ham.
Bro, it was a brother on there today talking about Adam was the beast.
Was the serpent? Man, I
Yeah,
heard that. I was like, I had to jump off the channel. It's like, that's what I'm saying. You please
like
don't.
we
I'm
just kick him out the
I'm on
camp,
my extreme
bro.
stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Let's
I'm
get
not with that.
biblical. Let's go in Torah. What we do,
Yes,
we kick him out the camp. You
man.
ain't in Israel no more. Excommunicated.
I'm not. It's not even about that, right? I'm just saying I'm not them. Like I'm not even
Yeah, we
excommunicating
not.
nobody. I'm saying
Yeah,
I'm walking away. Like you. So you can't confuse me with them. I'm not part of that crew. Like I'm over here. I'm in a whole nother circle, right? Like it's not even about like me kicking people out. It's about people. It's it's about me letting people do. We're not one monolithic people, right? We need to stop pretending like we are.
that's true.
So I'm totally cool with people who want to do their own thing like that. Like, that's them. That's the people they want to rock with. You know what I'm saying? Like they got their own. I mean, here's the funny part, right? Like if we really want to get down with it, like, if we took like a DNA test of like all these different belief systems that we see amongst us, it's hilarious. Like out of all the most racist / black, you know what I'm saying, belief systems we run into, and most of these cats have non-African haplogroups or whatever, right?
It's just the white supremacy showing in a different way.
Yeah. No, all I'm saying is them. Hey, them was not my folks, and them was not my folks. That's all I'm saying.
That is correct.
And hey, but if they want to get righteous, they can be my folks any day of the week. I'm not demarcating them based upon their bloodline or Africa. I'm demarcating based upon the fact, like, so again, you can hear me say this till I'm blue in the face, right? Like, if you got the nerve to raise your hand and say that you're affiliated with Israel in any way, shape, or form, like, you're literally trying to volunteer for the hardest job in the game. Like, you're trying to be like the embodiment of the Most High's righteousness, so the world can see it, understand it, redo it for themselves, all that type of stuff, right? If you're doing righteous, I ain't even tripping on you, fam. But like, we're talking about people who were doing a whole bunch of not, and also like got some really messed up research methodology and got a whole messed up way of doing rhetoric and a whole messed up way of conversing with people to where you can't even have a productive dialogue in terms of scholarship or whatever. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I can love them from a distance, but it's definitely at a distance. You know what I'm saying?
At a huge distance.
Here is the actual study as posted on the Cell website. Again, highly regarded academic study. Genome-wide data from medieval German Jews show that the Ashkenazi founder event predated the 14th century, and then it goes back and unpacks this further, tracing our lineage through the fathers back to the Middle East, back to ancient Israel. I continue. This is all what I presented briefly in the debate with.
Can you pause up right quick?
Subsequently, as Italians,
I just want everybody to keep in mind that as much as he's talking about Ashkenazi ancestry, we need to also keep in mind that the Ashkenazi, also a portion of them, carry the same paternal haplogroup as Dante. So in a way, he's also talking about Dante's paternal ancestry, right? So this doesn't exclude Dante.
No, it doesn't exclude Dante. That's very much correct.
That's, to me, that's the coolest part about that. Is like, so Dante's going to try to demarcate some stuff, but his DNA really makes it like, nah, he can't do it like that. So,
like, he could do what the Ashkenazi Jews did in the sense that he could tie himself to the Ashkenazi Jews.
Well, at this
the
juncture,
E1B1B.
see, this is why, man, I was trying when
that E1B1B, bro. That was me.
If I was E1, first of all, I'm a woman, but in another life, okay. If Most High decided to create me as a male in another creation, all right, and I was E1B1B, man, yeah, and I was a YAP member, bro. Y'all couldn't tell me nothing. I'm claiming Ashkenazi. I'm linking up with, bro. I'm talking mad smack.
All of it, right? I'm claiming all the Jewish with that, right? So here's the funny part, right? I was the one who let Dante know he was E1B1B, right? And for the longest, I was trying to tell him so he gave me all his GEDmatch info, all that type of stuff, some family info, looked at all, and I'm not going to disclose it and stuff because I told him I wouldn't. But like I told him, I was like, bro, to me, it looks like your joint comes from East Africa, right? East Africa, Yemen, whatnot, right? That's what it looks like to me. It looks like it came through the Sahel or whatnot, and then it dropped off amongst the the maybe like some Mandinka type people or whatnot, right? That was me, right? Maybe some like just somebody like in Mali, something like that, and etc. Right? I was like, to me, that's that's what it seems like, and it seems like that you mixed with a lot of people that you got dropped off. Like I told him, like it looks like your haplogroup that got dropped off like in the middle of some like West African DNA out of nowhere, and it just got stuck there, just mixed there for a long time or whatnot, right? And so I was like, you really look like you got that east side connection, right? I was like, there's multiple ways you can get this particular haplogroup going to West Africa or whatnot. But to me, it looks like you got the East African. And so for the life of me, I don't understand. He's choosing to take the potential Sephardic route with the joint, right? Like going with the whole Benai and all that type of stuff. But once you do that, you cannot separate yourself from the Ashkenazi, because the whole, like, you got this whole blended DNA that the Ashkenazi and Sephardic, like they overlap with, because when the Sephardic Jews left Spain and Portugal, a good chunk of them did go into Germanic parts of Europe and whatnot.
Sounds like they not even purebred white, quote unquote, white folks. They mix.
That's their story going all over Europe. You know what I'm saying? Like they start calling certain people, like you got German people being called Moors and whatnot, because they got, you know what I'm saying, they got the Jew fro popping and whatnot.
Yeah, and that was definitely a joke, guys. I don't think that Ashkenazi Jews are white people. They are many of them definitely are Semitic. And have legitimate claims of being Jews. I make that disclaimer because, you know, this internet.
You'll definitely have to make it if he was on Clubhouse.
I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Converted and married into Judaism, our European skin color became part of our heritage. Then, as these Jews made their way into other parts of Europe and settled there, the same process continued, explaining our Caucasian complexion. But the same process occurred with African Jews or Hispanic Jews.
That part.
The European skin color and the Caucasian complexion thing threw me.
How do you mean?
Because, I mean, I guess because everybody associates European with being white and Caucasian with being white. So I would have liked for him to explain those terms.
Yeah.
What does he mean by European
Right.
skin color or something? And what does he mean by Caucasian skin color?
This is where and me and E beef about this all day, right? Like, so this is where, like, when you get into scientific jargon, when it comes to phenotype and whatnot, scientific jargon is a lot different than average everyday colloquial just understandings of how you talk about phenotype and whatnot, right? And so now I agree with you. Like, it should be, you need to give good proper examples and visual examples to what you're talking about, and scientific, like good proper definitions and where you're getting these definitions from and whatnot, right? You can't, like, when it's all just subjective, we're having a problem. The whole point of having these conversations is get to an objective understanding of something, right? Even if it's subjectively understanding, we're coming from two subjectively different points of view, right? But I'll leave it there. There's another point I wanted to make on this, but I'll let you respond first.
Respond to what specifically? Because
so Shari was talking about she would have wished that he was more specific in terms of how he was expressing what he thought white and European and Caucasian, etc.
He said white, European, and Caucasian, like in separate.
I'm gonna rewind it a little bit because I just might be tripping.
Or he might not be listening, one of the two.
Because I just, when he said it, it just kind of threw me a little bit. Let me go back.
This is all what I presented briefly in the debate with Gurley Hebrew. Subsequently, as Italians converted and married into Judaism, our European skin color became part of our heritage. Then, as these Jews made their way into other parts of Europe and settled there, the same process continued, explaining our Caucasian complexion. But the same process occurred with African
Caucasian complexion.
Yeah,
that is a bit blurry.
Yeah, I kind of get what he's saying though.
I think everyone does get what he's saying.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I thought.
Yeah, I get what he's saying, of course, but for the lay person, and since he is using DNA papers that are speaking about migrations that happened back then, it would be a bit more clear for lay people to just clarify European skin color and Caucasian complexion
Okay, I guess.
because
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
yeah,
He's doing all right as far as I'm concerned with that. Like, I would like to see physical examples just so people can follow
right.
whatnot.
That's exactly what I mean. Physical.
But I think he's making it. I think the point that he's making here is fantastic, though, right? In the sense to where he's saying that he believes that the original Jewish population are brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that they go to different parts of the world, and their skin tone changes based upon the parts of the world they go to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, brown Jews would have gone into Africa and gotten darker. Brown Jews would have gone into Europe and gotten lighter. Brown Jews would have gone into Asia and maybe stayed the same color or gotten lighter or darker, etc.
Yep. I guess since I'm a visual person, I can definitely resonate with you saying pictures.
Yeah, no, and it. I think it cuts to the chase real quick in this conversation because, like I was saying, like so when he's saying brown, right? That's a subjective concept for him or whatnot, right? When black people hear brown, again, I'm saying black people, right? Like air quotes, like that's a subsect of people or whatnot, right? Like America, etc. Whatnot, right? There's a whole other concept of what they deem as brown, black, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, they'll call a red bone person black, right? So
And then
the person on my avatar, right? That could be black here, right? That's
Okay.
why the pictures matter. That's why the scientific jargon and definitions like they matter. Like that's how we get to an objective concept, right? Is if okay, what how does science talk about this stuff, right? Like so, for instance, like me and Ibri can beef about the term Caucasian or Caucasoid, right? Like he might like the word Caucasoid. I might like the word Ethiopoid, right? But the concept, like they both mean the same thing scientifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so, like most people aren't going to understand that. They might hear like so when he says Caucasian complexion, right? I'm like, me, I'm thinking strictly in the scientific conflict. Okay, that is kind of blurry because if I said Ethiopoid complexion and Caucasian complexion, most people wouldn't consider that the same complexion or whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But scientifically, if I said like that, they would have to be the same complexion.
Except with him.
Go ahead.
Except with him using Caucasian complexion in this context, it does. We do know he's talking about Europeans, though, because
No, I agree, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm saying is like so a lot of people don't know like when it comes into the science. So for instance, like you caught it because you got the modifier. He said European in front of it, right?
Right.
So we're gonna catch that little bit there, right? But that what I'm saying is like so a lot of people don't know you can use Caucasian in another direction,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the whole point of it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's the reason why we even beef on that concept, which I'm not trying to drag out here, obviously.
Like
So
there could be Caucasians that look like this. There could be Caucasians that look like this.
hit me with somebody that's Ethiopian right quick. You got to
I'm
use
just saying.
you got to use that right quick. There could be Caucasians.
I don't know how that many on here.
It could be the proper terminology would be there could be Caucasoids that look like this instead of Caucasians because Caucasian would Caucasoids.
There would be Caucasians that look like the people on the bottom left, that look like the people on the top right in the center, whatnot, with the black turban and whatnot. There could be Caucasian people that look like I don't know who you got on here.
Caucasoids.
Like I'm totally nitpicking just because this video was so good.
No, that's cool. But again, what I do like is I like his methodology, right? I like the fact that he's saying like, look, we should expect to see Jews be a multitude of different colors for a multitude of different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what I'm saying. I don't think that they're really arguing at the base point or whatnot. He said like, I agree. I believe Jews are brown or whatnot. I was like, I believe Jews are black or whatnot. Okay, now, so what does that look like to you? What are you really talking about? I'll leave it there.
Explaining our Caucasian complexion. But the same process occurred with African Jews or Hispanic Jews or Asian Jews all of whom reflect other people marrying into the people of Israel, hence the many different colors and ethnicities of Jews worldwide, in contrast with the original brown-skinned Israelites. For the record, even if you argue that the original Israelites were black, there had to be conversion and intermarriage to explain the other ethnic and racial groups in the chart. So even someone arguing for the bogus 12-tribe chart would have to say, yeah, through intermarriage, complexions and ethnicities can change. And I wrote this, but not only does DNA in general give us a clear link back to ancient Israel, the fact is, as I mentioned before, Ashkenazi Jews who are of priestly descent share the same priestly gene as do the Lemba Jews in Africa and Sephardi Jews worldwide. How could this be unless our Kohanim our priests actually descended from a common priestly ancestor? If Ashkenazi Jews have no genetic connection to Israel, then where did we acquire this gene? And then I quote from some other geneticists. Note also that geneticists have pointed out that the Y chromosome, meaning the paternal chromosome through the father of most Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews, contains mutations that are common among Middle Eastern peoples, but uncommon in the general European population. Actually, quoting geneticists here, this suggests that the paternal lineages of Ashkenazi Jews could be traced mostly to the Middle East. These geneticists add that, quote, diaspora Jews from Europe, Northwest Africa, and the Near East resemble each other more closely than they resemble their non-Jewish neighbors. Put another way, Ashkenazi Jews originated in the Middle East. You can't simply get out of this all by saying, well, you can't trust DNA that far back. Friends, there's too much science behind it.
Hey, real quick, sis, Ashley, what are you saying you can't subscribe to? Are you talking about the cohemoral haplotype, or are you talking about something else you just mentioned?
The Cohen thing, it's a 50-50 chance for it to be right or incorrect.
So so people need to understand the methodology. It's the soundest methodology you're going to come up to without having a body or whatnot, right? And you can do it with multiple different haplogroups amongst Jewry and whatnot. So right. It's a fallacy if you stop just at J, because if you're talking about like, well, what's the highest number? Now you're just talking about like an appeal to majority concept, right? Like doing it that way is fallacious and whatnot, right? But if you actually you can do it in such a way to where you're recognizing. So you can look at like one cohemodal haplotype, or you can look at the haplotypes that they have, right? They've got like they've got over 20 different ones, right? So if you calculate go into all the different haplotypes that the Cohen have, you can see what's consistent amongst the different Jewish populations and whatnot. So you're going to see not just J, but you're going to see a bunch of E as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And R, there's an R1A version as well.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to see a bigger percentage of J, 100%. You're going to see the second biggest percentage is going to be E. Just because one is bigger than the other doesn't mean that they're both the biggest minorities out of the group is the best way to say it. Is J is the biggest and E is the second largest.
Yep. EJR or JER.
Yeah, exactly, JER.
But yeah, it's just keep that in mind with the Cohen. It's 50-50 for either haplogroup. Only one of them can be Aaron, and everybody else will be convicts. So.
Mm-hmm. But what's dope about what he just did though is he tied together like different populations that have different phenotypes and whatnot, right? And he was trying to explain why the methodology he's talking about works so well. And the dope thing about what he just did though is amongst all them populations, again, that E population is right there with all of those different populations and whatnot. So with this methodology, you can really go back to you can almost like reverse combinate the reverse engineer the mixed multitude in a sense, like who was most likely at the base of the mixed multitude, right? And we can definitely see that E and J, like I always talk about an E and J block party, like they were definitely like a firm base of whatever the mixed multitude was. And I'm gonna say you can throw in definitely R, etc.
Man, you can throw a lot of haplogroups.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like it becomes pretty like when you see the same haplogroups amongst different. In a group of people who picks up sojourners or whatnot, you would expect that you're going to find groups that have different haplogroups that other ones do not have, right? But the ones that are consistent amongst all of them, you would assume, oh, those are probably at the base of the mixed multitude.
Yeah.
And you can use and that's the methodology that the cohemoto haplotype goes with the whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so when people I can definitely understand why people dislike saying this is the only one it can be when it's limited to just J. No, I agree with that. That's horrible methodology, whatnot, right? However, the methodology is sound in being able to if you extrapolate it to the other haplogroups or whatnot, you can definitely find out who the mixed multitude look like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You got it, sis.
I saw a post on our YouTube channel the other day. Someone said you can't trust DNA, just trust the King James Bible. Well, you can trust the King James Bible, but that does not discount the reality of DNA. So let's do this. Let's listen to what Mr. Fortson presents. I'm going to break it down and then dig into some of the sources that he cites and go a little deeper together. Let's start now with this video. This is obviously part of another teaching, but it's posted as a video on his YouTube channel about history, science, genetics, and Ashkenazi Jews. Right? Let's listen.
So now Kessler calls them out as European. I don't believe Kessler was the first person to call them out. In fact, I know he wasn't. Dr. Claudius L. Buchanan, which I'm not going to touch on today, he calls the black Jews the ancient Jews and refers to the white Jews as the Jerusalem Jews, and says they came along later. And I've gone over that before. I think I went over that in the last one, which is why I'm not bringing it out this time. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to close down the Kessler thing. And it's important to understand that it's not us saying it. And the reason I bring up Kessler, let me see if we can find some. I want to read it directly from here. All right, so it says 13 Tribe, 1976 book by Arthur Kessler, in which the author advances the thesis that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from the historical Israelites of antiquity, but from the Khazars, a Turkic people. Kessler hypothesized that the Khazars, who may be converted to Judaism, may have converted to Judaism in the 8th century, migrated westward into Eastern Europe in the 12th and 13th century when the Khazar Empire was collapsing. So that's what we just read directly from his book.
All right. Now, what's going to happen is that Mr. Fortson is going to bring in other evidence of DNA studies about European origins or matrilineal, so through the mother origins that are European for X numbers of Ashkenazi Jews, etc. That has nothing to do with Kessler. Kessler wrote a book as a Jew, hoping that if he could show that Ashkenazi Jews who had suffered so much, who had been persecuted so much as Jews, that, well, actually they were converts to Judaism, that it would lessen anti-Semitism. Instead, it increased anti-Semitism. Now there's charge you're fake Jews, etc. Kessler's work has been completely marginalized. It was not a solid academic work. In fact, Mr. Fortson quoted from an article on Wikipedia referencing Kessler's work. And if you scroll down in that article to where it says assessment, and I'm not going to take the time to read through all of this, you will see academic scholars completely rejecting the material, calling it an eccentric work, saying that Kessler was unequipped with specialist background the subject might be thought to require, and on and on. His work has virtually zero influence in the academic world today because it's outlying, because it's false. And as I'll show you in a minute, the whole Khazar hypothesis is easily refuted along many, many different lines. So the idea that some of the 8th, 9th century, the kingdom of Khazar converted to Judaism, and that's the origin of the Ashkenazi Jews, it's been refuted over and over and over and over, and has nothing to do actually with the other genetic studies that Mr. Fortson will reference momentarily. So if you want to watch a short video, it's, I don't know, 5-10 minutes long. We'll put a link up in the YouTube description channel, but it's just a very, very simple unpacking of this idea that this Khazarian origin of Ashkenazi Jews, or that somehow people like me would go back to the King Khazar, easily refuted. We'll put a link in the YouTube description where you can unpack this for yourself. Here's what I explained, and ran through in my interact with Guerrilla Hebrew when this myth of the Khazarian conversions, and that explains the Ashkenazi Jews, where that came up. So here's what I said in the debate. Number one, there is historical refutation. At most, some of the Khazarian people, starting with the king, converted to Judaism in the 9th century AD, possibly resulting in a small number of Khazarian Jews in future generations. This is verified by Professor Henry Abramson. But note that just 2 centuries later, the Spanish Jewish rabbi Hasdai ibn Shaprut sent emissaries to inquire if the story was true. That's how little lasting evidence there was of this alleged massive Khazar conversion, let alone the Khazar Jews allegedly being the originators of Ashkenazi Jewry. Let me just pause for a minute and say this.
My mom passed away in December of 2019. My wife was taking cancer treatments, and
no one is disputing that Israelite men, Jewish men as they scattered around the world, intermarried with Gentile women who converted to Judaism. That's how you have black Jews. That's how you have white Jews. And it's in the Bible. You have Rahab, the prostitute, who becomes an Israelite, and she now factors in royal genealogies ultimately. You have Ruth, the Moabite, an idol-worshiping people. She becomes part of the people of Israel. She converts to the Israelite faith, and she's in the lineage of David and of Jesus the Messiah. So this has happened throughout our history. And in fact, the fact that Guerrilla Hebrew's mother was a white Gentile, to me, did not disqualify him from being an Israelite. According to everything I understand, his DNA says he's not an Israelite, so he's a fake Israelite in that regard. But this is through history. No one's disputing that. No one's arguing it. We've all said it. I've said it for years and years. Other scholars have said it for centuries. We understand. That's how.
You noticed that too.
Hold on. Whoa. So that
what did y'all notice first?
What was that?
What did you notice first?
What I noticed was him saying that Alazar was not an Israelite based upon his DNA.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a bit of a. I ain't gonna lie. That's a little bit of a bold statement because his art marker could be connected to Ashkenazi Jews. I don't know, but and we don't know his mom's MT DNA. That could possibly be connected to Jews as well. So it's like I wouldn't outright be like he has no Israelite blood, or even his autosomes, he might have some like Jewish a little bit here and there. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. So I wouldn't completely outright say he doesn't have any type of connection to Jewish people. Does his overall DNA? Probably not, but I don't know if I make the bold statement that he absolutely has nothing. But that's just me.
So there's a good, okay. So there's like this legit like whole Germanic aspect of the part of the country where Alazar's people comes from, where his father comes from, and whatnot, where his DNA comes from. Where there's a lot of mixing that went on. Louisiana, Mississippi, there was a large amount of mixing that went on and whatnot. And so, just like the Taylor twins, when y'all saw me do the whole video about that little Germantown stuff and the DNA that they could potentially have, all that applies to Alazar. You know what I'm saying? So like he legit could have got his R1B from an Ashkenazi Jew or somebody who's Germanic or whatnot, right? So he could legit have like he could be like Dante. Like, so in fact, like he really is like Dante in the sense where he's closer to Ashkenazi Jews paternally than he is to most African Americans or whatnot. Just right off rip he is. I mean, because we know that there's Ashkenazi Jews that are R1B. Just like we know that Ashkenazi Jews that are A1B1B, right? So I mean, that's really what. So yeah, Dr. Brown, I need you to clarify that one, sir. I gotta pull your card for that one, sir. That was a foul on the play, sir.
Flag on the play, Dr. Brown. You can't demarcate your cousin like this.
Because he did it real quick. I saw it.
He tried to be slick with it. It was actually kind of fun. kind of funny. Like I see what you're trying to do.
Right,
It's so
he was
funny.
doing all the good in the world, my G, and then right there. You know what I'm saying?
He took one hand off the wheel, put his knee, and started shooting out the window.
He sure did. He started leaning out the window and everything.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I cut up in Berean chat when he said this. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, we gotta no. See, now we gotta get this one cleared up, Dr. Brown.
I bet if Alazar took a DNA test, and I'm talking about a good one, using like DNA Genix or something, and were to use the Jewish DNA calculator, he'll probably get something.
Yeah, he might get some Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. He's gonna be close to like Ashkenazi or Sephardic, one of the two. I mean, he has an ancestry, like so he has the French and Spanish ancestry, right? So, and I believe he has French, German, and Spanish ancestry in his autosomal or whatnot from 23andMe.
Now, okay, here's what I first noticed, and this just might be, the Black Hebrew Israelite in me, okay? And he said, when he went into that conversion and the mother's coming in, and he said, that's how we got Black Jews. I wanted to park the car right there. Like, what? I need you to clarify that right
Rewind that right quick.
All right, let's go back a little bit.
Because I was doing a couple of things in the background.
In calling all this change, him from being an Israelite, according to everything, throughout our people, she becomes part of the prostitute from the world, intermarried with massive Khazar conversion, let alone the Khazar Jews allegedly being the originators of Ashkenazi Jewry. Let me just pause for a minute and say this. No one is disputing that Israelite men, Jewish men as they scattered around the world, intermarried with Gentile women who converted to Judaism. That's how you have Black Jews. That's how you have white Jews. And it's
he cleaned it up because he said Black and white Jews there.
So what do you specifically think?
No, I mean, I don't really have a problem with that because I just misheard him.
Yeah. So in the context of what he's saying, like, so he's saying Black is in like sub-Saharan African Black or whatnot, right? He's talking about like so he believes that the Jews were brown, and like the only way they got other colors other than brown is by intermixing with people who were different colors or whatnot.
See,
Yeah,
even I struggle with the African American Black thing. You see how quick the BHI comes out, bro? He got that residual down in there. Like, wait a minute, hold up. Let me rewind it and re-listen. Yeah, totally misheard him. He cleared it up right after he said it.
I gotta watch y'all young heads, you know what I'm saying? You need Breeze and whole BHI hoteps or whatnot. I see y'all.
Bro, we had to claw our way out of this stuff. Y'all just gotta pray.
Is it me, Ibri, or is Shari coming in muffled?
Yeah, I was about to say you are kind of muffled. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna change my mic, but I'm gonna play.
You got it.
It's in the Bible. You have Rahab, the prostitute, who becomes an Israelite, and she now factors in royal genealogies. Ultimately, you have Ruth, the Moabite, an idol worshiping people. She becomes part of the people of Israel. She converts to the Israelite faith, and she's in the lineage of David and of Jesus the Messiah. So this has happened throughout our history. And in fact, the fact that Guerrilla Hebrew's mother was a white Gentile, to me, did not disqualify him from being an Israelite. According to everything I understand, his DNA says he's not an Israelite, so he's a fake Israelite in that regard. But this is through history. No one's disputing that. No one's arguing it. We've all said it. I've said it for years and years. Geneticists and other scholars have said it for centuries. We understand that's how skin color and all this changes. You travel to different parts of the world. You live there. People from those parts of the world, the women in particular, convert, marry in, and you do that enough, and now you take on the skin color and complexion and outward ethnicity of the cultures where you live. All right, so historical refutation, there's no evidence even in the ancient world of this mass conversion. It should also be pointed out that the Khazar kingdom appears to have been destroyed by 1000 AD, with no mention of Jews in that region after that for 400 years. In the words of Professor Shaul Stamfer, the demographic researcher, quote, "It's a splendid story, and just that, a story, not history." In his view, the story is entirely fabricated or highly exaggerated. So if in fact there were some converts, they invent history. On a linguistic level, there is absolutely no linguistic connection between the Khazarian people who spoke a Turkic language and Ashkenazi Jews, whose first language, Yiddish, is very close to German. If you go to Israel today, friends, you're German, and you stand on the street and you listen to your average Israeli speaking Hebrew, you don't have any clue what they're saying. You do not have a clue of anything they're saying because they're speaking Hebrew, a Semitic language. If you went into ultra Orthodox area where the Jews that were speaking Yiddish, you'd understand a lot of it because it's Germanic, right? It has no connection to any Turkic language. One Israeli scholar who tried to argue for that has been utterly trounced by other top Yiddish scholars in the world. The Yiddish linguist and onomastic expert, so expert in names, Alexander Bider, has stated that, quote, "the corpus of personal names and surnames borne by Jews in Eastern Europe during the last 6 centuries, as well as the Yiddish language as a whole, do not contain any link to Khazariya." So there is no historical connection, no linguistic connection. He continues, "In the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe over the past 6 centuries, not a single Turkic name can be found in documents listing Jewish names, even in documents from the 15th and 16th centuries dealing with Jews who lived in the territories of modern Ukraine and Belarus have no such names." If you want to invest a couple $100 and get his book on the origins of the Yiddish language, there's a lengthy appendix in the back of it that lays this out. And then genetically, there is no connection between Ashkenazi Jewish DNA and Turkic equals Khazarian DNA. Here is a major study that was published by Human Biology. Human Biology, got all the info right there. You can look it up for yourself. No evidence from genome-wide data of a Khazar origin for the Ashkenazi Jews. Here's a list of the geneticists involved, okay? This is, and each slide has multiple names on it. This was one of the most important genetic studies done in history on Ashkenazi Jews, and it concluded no connection whatsoever to Khazaria. So I could go on with that, but enough said that theory is absolute rubbish, that Jews today, Ashkenazi Jews, can trace their origins back to Khazaria. Absolute rubbish. Not only so, about half the Jews of the world today are not Ashkenazi. Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews. The Mizrahi Jews have lived in that Middle Eastern territory for roughly 4,000 years with an unbroken history there and speaking the same language. The dialects vary here and there, just like English across America varies a little, but the same language, living there. Where'd they come from? They've always been there. They've always been there. And genetically, we are connected. Mizrahi Jews, Sephardi Jews who were in the Iberian Peninsula of Spain, exiled in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's when all non-baptized Jews in Spain were kicked out, thrown out of the country. Either if they stayed, they were killed or forced to convert to Catholicism. Otherwise, they had to flee for their lives. Sephardi Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, we all share a common gene pool. Yeah, quite remarkably. Okay, so let's go back now to Mr. Fortson, and we will listen to his next clip.
Does anyone have an issue with what Dr. Brown just said? And can I be heard?
You still a little bit muffled.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yep.
So, what you saying, Avery?
I mean, I really don't have too much to say concerning that the whole Khazarian thing. It's like we know that most Jews, in terms of their Y DNA chromosomes, have either the J marker or the E marker, which are definitely not Central Asian Turkic Khazarian. E that's seen among the Jews is pretty much North African, Middle Eastern. J that's seen among the Jews is definitely Near Eastern. So it's like, if we're talking about the majority of the Ashkenazi Jewish population, both of them have those two haplogroups, which aren't Turkic. So if there is a few of them that have Turkic Y-DNA chromosomes, it's so few in number to the point that it's kind of irrelevant. So, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so if we're going to call, I'm going to say it like this. So the whole Khazarian argument, if you're even trying to make that argument, like, so if we're going to call like a flag on the play for Dr. Brown talk just out of nowhere, just saying, well, Alazar is not an Israelite based upon his DNA, not even breaking that down in any way, shape, or form, right? Like just demarcating something for like no legitimized reason, right? Just off the cuff or whatnot, right? You got to call the foul on the flag on the play in the other direction with it, right? Like so, and this is why it doesn't even make any sense, right? Because at this juncture, you're saying, well, like, so you guys aren't Jews because you're converts. Do you not understand how that nation works, bro? A convert is a Jew, man. There's no like Jewish group going around in the world saying, well, y'all ain't real Jews because y'all ain't part of the tribes of that go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Like, fam, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this junk work, bro. Like, y'all are picking the wrong nation to be this exclusive with, and it doesn't make any sense. And the crazy part about it is, like, so if you can't prove who Abraham is in terms of genetics, like, how do you know you're not a convert? So if you're demarcating them as being converts, like, how do you like so you're saying there's no converts nowhere in Africa? I hate to break it to you, fam. Go to the Limba, bro. Like, there's more than one haplogroup amongst the Limba. They got over 10. Go to the Ethiopian Jews. They got more than one haplogroup amongst them. Somebody's a convert, fam. There's black converts in Africa somewhere, bro.
How do you read the Exodus and not come out with understanding that there's a mixture of people going on?
A, you sound fantastic at this juncture, and B, that's the greatest question in the game. Like, and so this is the thing. So Dante comes out with some pseudo stuff that says, and let me try to find it actually. Like, I'll pull it. I'll look for it in a second if I can't find it. No, I don't got it right now. But I'll pull it up in a second. So he tries to come up with a verse. He talks about like, well, the mixed multitude was separated from Egypt and whatnot. That's not what it says in the Hebrew, fam. Like, there's Hebrew for the mixed multitude, right? It says mixed multitude in English in one spot where he talks about them being separate, and it don't say the mixed multitude in Hebrew, fam. It's not the same mixed multitude that comes out of Egypt, fam. It says a multitude is separated, right? The whole concept of like of separated based upon mixture, whatnot, that's not from God, fam. In terms of like the people that come in and sojourn with the nation, he does not demarcate people that way. When people try to go back to Ezra, like, you don't see God be commanding Ezra to separate nobody, fam. The Lemba say they come from the people that Ezra separated from the Israelites who were, right? That's the Lemba claim. They come from the people that Ezra separated. So if you're going to demarcate people, fam, all right, the Lemba ain't Jews no more. The Lemba's not Israelites no more, fam. But you're playing with your special pleading, right? You're playing with special rules or whatnot. You don't want them to apply to you the same way you want to apply to other people or whatnot. And that's why people can't take that's why a lot of you guys are at a scholastic standstill. You're at a situation to where you're not trying to debate no scholars for real. You're cool with being in your echo chamber and whatnot, because like, you can't take this argument and actually have it scrutinized and actually walk away with it being a clean argument and whatnot. But I digress.
On point. How do we know the Khazars didn't migrate? Are they not Scythians?
Khazars and Scythians are two different ethnic groups. Khazars are Turkic, Scythians are Indo-Iranian. And what else? Khazars did migrate, but we kind of have a good understanding of Khazarian Y-DNA chromosomes as well as their autosomes. But
shout out to Tayo on there.
But in terms of their Y-DNA, we know they're not going to carry E1B1A and E1B1B Khazars. They're, like, in terms of their origin, their geographical origin, which is way off in Central East Asia, they're not going to be pairing E markers. J marker, they might have a few J markers, but the specific J marker that the Jews have is JP58, which is Middle Eastern specific. So they're not really gonna, Khazars aren't really gonna, like, in their origin, in their genesis, they're not gonna have JP58. And like I said, the Khazarian origin in terms of their homeland. Remember, these Turkic peoples come from way off in Central East Asia, and then they come and sweep west, going into places like Ukraine and Eastern Europe. Like, we can't just start off with these groups being in Eastern Europe. They come far off from Central East Asia. So what haplogroups are dominant in Central East Asia? Well, you got Q, you got some versions of R1A, and you got eventually some G once these Turkic groups come into the Caucasus region, and some of these groups kind of like get forced or get absorbed into Turkic society, like with Anatolia, which was ruled by the Ottoman Turks. Like, not everybody there was a Turk. In terms of like having their origins in Central Asia, some people were actually native Anatolians that were absorbed into Turkish society. So, and same thing is true of the Khazars. A lot of the people in modern day Ukraine or in the northern Caucasus, not all those people would have been Khazars. A lot of those people would have been absorbed into Khazarian society. So that's another aspect we have to think about as well.
Hey, real quick, Nubian, tell me exactly who we need to debate on what on Sunnetters TV. Because like Sunnetter TV is a whole like he's Don King, fam. He does a divide and conquer thing where like his whole point of existence is to get paid off of controlled conflict within the community, not unity and whatnot. There's So you're saying this in response to me saying that Israelites don't debate nobody in the scholastic realm. Like, what's scholastic about Sunday TV? What's scholastic about lookership? What's scholastic about people just screaming over each other with no scholarship whatsoever? And it's just to try to win the crowd over. Like, I know like it ain't hard to debate on Sunday TV. Like, I could do that whenever I want to. I got people that go do it all the time. I've turned down debates on Sunday TV. The only time I was me and Mons were willing to debate on Sunday TV is if it was a dual stream on other platforms to where he didn't have full control over it. He didn't want to do it. We like, all right, we walked away. Because I'm not trying to give people power like that, fam. Like, so what question has Sunnetter answered in terms of any of this stuff we're talking about? What scholastic question has he got a definitive answer to in the past 10, 15 years of what he's doing? Absolutely nothing, because it's not scholarship based. He's asking the same questions today he was 15 years ago. He's got people debating against each other today on the same topics they were 15 years ago. It's not about scholarship, it's about lookership at that juncture. Proceed, my fault.
So more. Do you believe that Dante would take a debate with Dr. Brown?
Do I believe he would take a debate with Dr. Brown? Yes, I think he would, because Dr. Brown, he would do it like so. It's so particularly like in the way that it happened on Berin and whatnot, right? Because even though Dr. Brown won the debate, Dr. Brown's not. So let me say it like this. So Dante would do it because for the people who watch like Sonetta or whatnot, they would perceive Dante as winning that debate no matter what happens in that debate, right? The scholastic people are going to view Dr. Brown winning that debate no matter what, you know what I'm saying? No matter what arguments Dante brings, because it's going to be, they're going to come from two different perspectives of whatnot. Dr. Brown's going to come from a scholastic perspective. Dante's going to come from a I am the source perspective, right? And so like when you watch that debate with Alazar and Dr. Brown, that's what you saw. You saw the people who watched Sunday like, oh man, Alazar killed it, blah blah blah. And the people who were more scholastic, they recognized, oh okay, I could see where Dr. Brown was rebutting this with a source, rebutting this, rebutting that, showing this and talking about that. The way it went down, like it would have, in order for someone like Dante or Alazar to be shown for the frauds that they are and a lot of the information that they show, they would have to debate somebody like Yeshua, or they'd have to debate somebody like me, or they have to debate somebody like James or etc. Right, to where like people who were used to debating in multiple different types of formats and whatnot. So I've debated in scholastic formats. I've debated collegiate debates before. I've debated in this Sinetta style of arena, right? So like you need somebody who's got that understanding and whatnot, right? But do I think Dante would take the debate with Brown? 100%, because he would get name recognition off of it. It wouldn't be a bloody debate for him, because you saw how it went with Alazar. Like I said, Alazar was more of a like so. For instance, when Dante was debating vocab or whatnot, right? Vocab wasn't as prepared as he should have been in any way, shape, or form or whatnot, right? But vocab was trying to get in there and mix it up with Dante a little bit more and whatnot, right? He was more familiar with the whole sonnet style stuff. He was like, let me get in here and start mixing up a little bit, like make it uncomfortable for Dante, right? Meaning where he's at or what, like that's Dante is going to avoid that, but he will 100% take a debate with Dr.
I think he'll take a debate or a dialogue with Dr. Brown, and it'll more than likely help him, and he will change a few of his arguments pertaining to Ashkenazi Jews and a few other things. So I hope he does.
Yeah, a high be praised. The whole reason why Dr. Brown is even doing stuff like this is so he can eventually fill the debate with Dante later on down the road. Like that's like Dante, like so Dr. Brown kind of wants to be known as like the American Messianic Jew dealing with all the Messianic Jew stuff, right? And so
he asks for him at the end of towards the end of this. He asks, for if Dante wants to debate or dialogue or just have a private conversation. So he asks the question in this video.
See, I haven't even seen the video and I already know that that's what I'm saying. Like, cause this is how Dr. Brown gets down. He does debates. Like he's got more debates than you can shake a stick at. He's been debating for decades.
I'll debate the Khazar theory with anybody that wants to debate. I'll eat you alive.
She talking to you, Bree.
Anybody can get it. Let's see what part of Dante's video he's playing right now.
Hold on. Before you play,
January 21st, 2006.
Pause it right quick.
Is from the.
So one thing I will say definitively is though Dante has turned down debates from people like me. So I'll just say it like that. Would he debate Dr. Brown? Yeah. But would he debate me? Hell no.
He just don't like you, brother. I'm sorry. I am sorry. He just not vibing with you more.
Yeah, I'm like, see, here's the problem. Like, see, I need the Jew shiesty joint on this piece. You know what I'm saying? I need the old Ivory. I need to spend a whole career joint right quick. So now you got to play.
Let's see. All right.
The NCBI or NIH.gov. Let me see here. I just want to make sure I get all these. Here it is right here. U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. I just want to make sure I got all these acronyms right, because we're going to keep running across a bunch of acronyms in a bunch of different places. So this is a .gov website, so it's from the government. It's not from some random person. Now, here's what it says. Gene tests show that 2/5 of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from 4 women. You come down here. It says 4 founding mothers who lived in Europe 1,000 years ago were the ancestors of 2/5 of all Ashkenazi European origin Jews. This is the conclusion of a team of researchers at the Technion and Israel Institute of Technology, Haifa. After they compared DNA sequences from nearly 2,000 Jews with those of 11,500. Let me see. I don't think that might be a typo on their part. 500 non-Jewish people in 67 different populations around the world.
Right. Exactly. Same studies that we've all looked at. Nothing new there. So roughly 40% of Ashkenazi Jews can be traced back to some key women, European women who converted to Judaism and married in, or had Middle Eastern origins but were living in Europe. Yeah, no surprise there. We fully understand that, again, around the world, explaining why you have Chinese Jews, Black Jews, Hispanic Jews, white Jews, because people convert, marry in, and then the ethnicities change over the centuries. We all know that. But I want you to notice, as you scroll down in the article, it mentions Professor Skorecki, one of the key people, Professor Skorecki. It mentions his name. Well, who is this? If you go to the Bar Ilan University website, one of the top schools in Israel, it mentions Dean Professor Karl Skorecki. Professor Karl Skorecki is the dean of Bar Ilan University's Azrieli Faculty of Medicine in Safed, born and raised in Toronto. So here's his whole bio. How did Professor Skorecki become famous? Here's an article on Science Daily from July 14th, 1998, summarizing some major research. Priestly gene shared by widely dispersed Jews. The finding last year of genetic links among Jewish men thought to be descendants of the biblical high priest Aaron was greeted with tremendous interest and clamoring for more information. A team of British and Israeli scientists have now found additional information that links the priestly caste, the Kohanim, which includes men with last names that are variations on Kohen. Who is it that spearheaded this study? Professor Skorecki. He began to wonder, how was it that in the Jewish community around the world, that certain people had a history, a tradition of being priests, that they, in their names, in their customs, and their traditions, trace back to Aaron, the high priest. How was this, and was it verifiable? So he began to do these studies, and to his surprise and the amazement of others, and by the way, so priest in Hebrew is Kohen, priest plural Kohanim. So many Jews with the last name Cohen, that's what it goes back to, Kohen, priest. And that's how it was preserved in that name. Many from the tribe of Levi have the last name Levi. So what happened was Professor Skorecki and his team found that there was a common gene that would, on the male side, that would trace back to Aaron, or trace back to a figure at the right time in world history in the Middle East, all traced back to the same figure. And it was commonly held by Sephardi Jews, by Ashkenazi Jews. It was even found among Lemba Jews in Africa. Isn't this remarkable? I'm going to come back to the Lemba towards the end with some fascinating data about these African Jews. But how in the world did we all end up with this same gene, those of priestly descent, unless it all went back to
Aaron? That is the last part of that sentence. But I'm gonna have to jump off here. Get the kids down for bed. School in the morning. Anybody can take over at this timestamp. But before I go, I do want to ask y'all this: what haplogroup comes to mind when he says this?
I'm thinking
he's talking about haplogroup J. He's talking about JP58.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. That's the impression I got.
Not specifically what he's talking about, and he's right. I mean, the groups he's talking about do carry JP58. They also carry E and other stuff as well. But what I'm finding interesting about what he's talking about, and what is that? Is that 3045 or is that 3645 or 3845?
3045. I can share it with the timestamp, can I?
There you go. Well, you dropped the link in the private chat.
Yes, sir.
Or the favor. So what he's talking. So this is where I'm calling again. You know what I'm saying? Flag on the play, right? So we're 2-1 at this juncture. Dante versus the good doctor, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Because so Dante, and this is in his books and whatnot, right? Where he makes the argument like, oh, well, see, he's trying to point to the fact that they have a European admission. Like, see, they're European. They're European on their mother's side or whatnot, right? Okay, cool. So, but Dante in his books makes like a paternal argument for Israel or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you're already playing with uneven scales on that one, right? But now let's go ahead and apply this to the limba, right? So, you can go back to my channel, go back to Sister E's channel, where we're both interviewing Colleen Hamadisha and whatnot, right? And he tells the story that a small group of limba males left Yemen, no women, and they intermixed with East African women, or women in Mozambique and women in Southeast Africa, etc. Right? It was just a small group of limba men that left, and they took no women with them, right? So the same thing is going to happen, right? So this is what Dr. Brown's talking about, like how people got darker, they switched up, etc., etc., etc. This is where when he said this is how we got black Jews, because to him they're brown, they go from being brown to white, brown to black, based upon who they admix with now. Admix with the whatnot, right? But like the same thing applies here. If you're going to go at the Ashkenazi Jews for having different maternal lineages because they go different places and whatnot, and they pick up different women, you got to do the same thing with the limba and whatnot, right? On top of that, though, you gotta take issue with what goes on in West Africa and whatnot, because again, you can find on record, Rabbi Demota talks about this, right? To where it's on record that West African women were converting to Sephardic Jewry so they could marry the Portuguese Jews coming into West Africa and whatnot. So we're seeing the same thing happen in West Africa with a whole other set of Jews who now we're taking West African women. So we got the limba taking East African women, we got the Sephardic Jew taking West African women, and if you're talking about that Jews went into Central and West Africa, guess what? They're taking Central and West African women as well, right? So this argument, again, this is special. This is why someone like Dante won't debate someone like me, is because I'm going to call them out on special pleading every single solitary time. Your arguments better work both ways. You can't make it apply to one group and not make it apply to yourself. So I'm going to go Avery here.
Yep.
Run the mic for like a good 30 seconds while I go grab this video.
Okay. But yeah, so far, Dr. Brown's video, I wonder if he had planned to cover this today, because it kind of just randomly popped up. But so far, I would say that his video is decent. And I guess the next thing we're going to see is a debate between Dr. Brown and Dante Fortson, since I think Shari said that he asked him to debate him. So I guess we'll see what goes from there. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to see him review someone like Dante, who's pretty big in the Israelite community. But I would like to see where this goes in the future.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that Dante would probably do a little bit worse than Alazar did, though, because Dante's not a debater and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't got that many debates under his belt. Alazar has more debates, and I saw a lot of chinks in his armor when I saw him debating vocab or whatnot. And so I think that when it comes to Dr. Brown's not going to revert to an emotional conversation like vocab did. Like vocab started insulting Dante back and started getting back at him and all that kind of stuff. I don't think Dr. Brown will do it. He'll keep it straight on the scholarship, like he tried to do with Alazar. And when kept to that calm conversation without appealing to emotionalism, like I think it would be harder for Dante to make his arguments and sound cogent while doing so. But that's just me. Any words for I play with this, Ibri?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
If Ashkenazi Jews were converts of the Khazars, which of course complete nonsense, but if that's where it all comes from, that's over here. That's unrelated, right? And if the limba Jews, they're the African Jews, they're the real Jews, they're over here, and the Sephardi Jews, they're somewhere else. How is it you trace back 4,000 years to the same genetic pool with an individual of priestly descent in the Middle East? So this is of tremendous consequence, and this is in that very article. All right, so let me just log into this one article.
Is it meant to be fast?
Let's take a look then at.
Yeah, I sped it up because we're 1 hour and 45 minutes in this joint. Is it too fast?
No, just making sure it wasn't me. Like
Yeah,
my internet.
Like I typically watch Dr. Brandon like at 2 times speed just because he speaks mad slow. Like, so if 1.5 is too fast, let me know.
No, you're good. You're good.
A little bit more in depth in some of these studies. Okay, let's scroll down to this article that Mr. Fortson cited, right, from the published in the National Library of Medicine. Gene tests show that 2/5 of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from 4 women. And let's scroll down to the paragraph which says this. The team, which studied mitochondrial DNA, so this is passed down solely by mothers to their children, found evidence of shared Ashkenazi and non-Ashkenazi Jews, a finding showing a shared ancestral pool that is consistent with previous studies that were based on the Y chromosome, so the male chromosome. This evidence pointed.
Abu says, just as I said before, that the Brown-Alazar debate, that Brown needed to be clear about his definition of Israelite. I say now that in a Brown-Fortson debate, Dante needs to clarify his definition. I think that needs to be clarified. Like if that's not clarified at the beginning of the debate by both debaters, I think even in like a pre-debate concept, right? Like if we're not familiar with what they're talking about in terms of that before they come into debate, I feel like it's a waste of time for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I definitely agree with Abu that this needs to be clarified on both sides, right? Brown got to be clear, and Dante 100% got to be clear. Hold on, let me see what he said again. Let me see if he's throwing me under the bus yet. Side note, since Moore just mentioned the vocab Dante debate, did Moore once float the idea of reviewing that debate? I still like this. You know what? I certainly did, and I did forget to do so. You know what? I appreciate the reminder because yes, sir. Your boy, since watching that debate, I bought Dante's book and read his book, and it became clear to me that vocab did not read Dante's book before the debate. And so had he done so, I think vocab, because I've moderated 6 debates for vocab. I think vocab would have wiped the floor with Dante had he read his book. And that's not me being biased. That's me this is me having watched vocab debates 6 times. Me watching how Dante debated, and how he handled the information in his own book. And I know how I would have debated Dante had I been in the ring and had read his book or whatnot. And I promise you, that would have went. I don't know why vocab debated him without reading the book. Like to me, that's a scholastic no. There's no way I'm debating you on a topic you got a book about and I'm not reading the book. That's definitely not happening. But no, Abu, I appreciate you. You put it on me. I will review that joint, and I will definitely bring the book out while doing so. What else we saying? You see what he you see what he's talking crazy. I'm with it. Scholastically, he's talking scholastic, you know what I'm saying? He ain't talking about no real stuff. But with that, I'm gonna get back to the thing. Yeah.
Pointed to a similar pattern of shared paternal ancestry of Jewish populations around the world originating in the Middle East. Exactly what we've been saying, that our origins are in the Middle East through our fathers. They concluded that the 4 founding types of mtDNA, likely to be of Middle Eastern origin, underwent a major overhaul expansion in Europe over the last 1,000 years. So even these European women had Middle Eastern background, but they were living in Europe. Fascinating, isn't it? And as Mr. Fortson notes, as you read through more of this, there's actual refutation of the idea that there's any connection to Khazarian Jews, the alleged converts and things like that. Isn't that interesting? So the article cited confirms exactly the same position that we have taken all these years. By the way, there are 2 major books. Write down the name: Kevin Allen Brooks. Kevin Allen Brooks. One of the books has this name: The Maternal Genetic Lineages of Ashkenazi Jews. This came out in 2022. If you want to dig into this, if you want to study this in depth, The Maternal Genetic Lineages of Ashkenazi Jews. Ashkenazi Jews came out October 25th, 2022. If you want to get in depth and really study this. The other book that he wrote was on the Jews of Khazariya. Find out the truth about this whole story. Jews who live there in Khazar, the alleged conversion of the Khazars. So this came out 2018. Kevin Allen Brooks, The Jews of Khazariya. So if you want to study, here's some sources where you can get into greater depth. They will confirm everything I have said thus far. So far, this study actually doesn't say anything contrary to what we've always said, that we go back to the original tribes of Israel as Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardi Jews.
You all should have a conversation with geneticist Dr. Aaron L. Hike in regards to the Khazarian hypothesis. He believes it's true. What you saying, Avery?
I mean, I wouldn't mind talking to him, but just because he says it's true, you'll find other geneticists, I think most geneticists will say that it's not true. Like if we were to talk to, let's say, Razid Khan, who's a pretty well-known geneticist,
Yeah.
he would more than likely disagree with the Khazarian hypothesis. So sure, I mean, Aaron Elhike might agree with it, but everybody else wouldn't. But yeah, I wouldn't mind talking to him. You know?
Yeah, I'm over here with my Mr. Grinch look on my face like all day. Like I'm with the dude. Like, yeah, that's a great idea, my G.
Great idea indeed, but it's a hypothesis for a reason.
No, but this is why it's a great idea because I think we could like I would. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna reach out to Aaron Elhike because I think if he doesn't come talk to us, it's gonna say a lot about what he actually believes or whatnot, right? I think we need to have a conversation about his website and about the Khazarian concept because I mean we can. We can smash the Khazarian concept like real simple. It's not hard. It's really not hard, and so like it should be a short conversation with the geneticist.
Yeah,
with no BS. It should be a real short conversation with a geneticist. You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna see where he gets stuck. He's gonna get stuck trying to talk about autosomal concepts and whatnot, right? And we're gonna talk about again, just like when we talk to BHI, we're gonna talk about lineage and whatnot, right? Or talk to whoever, we're gonna talk about lineage and whatnot, right? And it's gonna become a real quick conversation and whatnot, right? And we'll apply the same concepts to what he talks about in terms of his website and whatnot. No, that's a fantastic idea. I'm with you, polite, respectful conversation, 100%, 100% polite, respectful. But I do think that it would be very telling in terms of methodology and understanding on DNA. I think that he would have to admit a lot of things in terms of where he's hypothesizing things versus factually proving something and whatnot. And I think that would be very interesting to see if he actually has the intellectual honesty to do so. Getting back to it.
Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Black Jews, we go back to the original tribes of Israel, but through scattering and intermarriage, especially women converting to Judaism and then intermarrying, we take on different skin color and background. So when we talk about the suffering of the Jews in history, it's the suffering of Sephardi Jews who were kicked out of Spain. It's the suffering of Ashkenazi Jews who were slaughtered in Europe. It's the suffering of Black Jews who were discriminated against within Africa. That's all part of our common heritage that we Jews have. All right, so let us get back then to the presentation and listen to more of what Mr. Fortson has to say.
That's interesting because Kessler is telling you that these people weren't Semitic. And so now, that was in 1976. So we fast forward 30 years later to 2006. It's proven that they weren't genetically Semitic.
So first thing, this has nothing to do with Kessler. Kessler's theory was an entirely separate theory, separate from the one about the origin of Ashkenazi Jews with these 2/5 coming from 4 European mothers. But the studies do confirm our Semitic descent, 100%, through the men. They actually confirm that, point in that direction, and the priestly gene common among Ashkenazis, Sephardi, other Jews confirms that as well. The intermarriage through other women, that has been part of our history from the beginning, right in the Bible. That has happened through history. Women converting, marrying in. It has happened through history. It continues to this very day. All right, back to Mr. Fortson.
TheScientist.com. Genetic roots of Ashkenazi Jews. This is from, hold on, let me make sure I'm not skipping. Okay, so this is from October 8th, 2013. So this is 7 years later after the source I just read. So Arthur Kessler started, and then 30 years later, I just read a source that says they are European. And then now I'm going 7 years after that to 2013, October 8, 2013. Most Ashkenazi Jews traditionally believe to have descended from the ancient tribes of Israel may in fact be maternally descended from prehistoric Europeans. This is not Israelites saying this. This is not Dante making this claim. And yet they say it's racist when we say it. And the scientific community is saying it.
All right, so I'm going to come back to the racist issue in a moment. I didn't hear anything racist in Mr. Fortson's words. I didn't hear anything race baiting in his words. So if you do happen to watch this video, I appreciate the way you're presenting things. And it seems to me that you're honestly looking at the evidence and trying to understand it, putting the sources up for everyone, right? And not cherry picking. So I appreciate you doing that. You know, it's interesting when I sent Gorilla Hebrew's arguments to geneticists and historians to look at, especially one he said highly respected, he should be listened to. One said to me, his position is intellectual sewage. Those are the words that use, intellectual sewage. Another geneticist said, yeah, his positions were completely wrong. My rebuttals were completely accurate. Because I'm not a geneticist, neither is Mr. Fortson, neither is Gorilla Hebrew, etc. So I said, hey, it's crystal clear to me. But I'm going to send it to scholars, experts in the field, especially the ones that they're citing as reliable people. And these very people are saying, yeah, what Gorilla Hebrew was saying was, quote, intellectual sewage. All right, so Mr. Fortson, he's presenting things, going through the evidence more clearly, but the issue is not whether we are Semitic or not. We are. Those are our origins. The issue is there also a European contribution through women who converted to Judaism? Yes, of course. We've always known that. That's not disputed. I'm not disputing that for a split second. So let's look at this actual study. All right, you get a free account on this website to log in and read it for yourself. The majority of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from prehistoric European women, according to a study published today in Nature Communications. While the Jewish religion began in the Near East and the Ashkenazi Jews were believed to have origins in the early indigenous tribes of this region, new evidence from mitochondrial DNA, so the mother, which is passed down exclusively from mother to child, suggests that female ancestors of most modern Ashkenazi Jews converted to Judaism in the North Mediterranean.
So this is a great question. Hobby Praise asks, how can you be Shemitic with 10 different Y-DNA haplogroups? Which one of these Y-DNAs is Shem? Um, so this is why having scholastic conversations and talking about the scholastic jargon is very important, um, because there's how laymen perceive something, and then there's how the scholars perceive something, right? So as the layman, we might think of Semitic as descending from Shem or whatnot, right? And that's not necessarily how it's used in scholastic circles. Semitic in scholastic circles could just mean Semitic speaking, right? Like speaking a Semitic language or whatnot, right? Um, and so what Dr. Brown is talking about is you can basically find that J that they're talking about in the Levant amongst Semitic speakers and whatnot, right? And that is 100% the case. Because it doesn't. He's not saying that it proves that they come from Shem, because there's no Shem DNA that we have on file or whatnot, right? So this is where, even when we talk about things like Canaanite and whatnot, right? They're not necessarily talking about people who all descend from Canaan or whatever. They're talking about people who descend from the people who lived in the land of Canaan, right?
Facts.
So when we're talking, particularly like this is something we need to walk through like real slow. We might need to do like a Shari series on like how she wrote down like methodology on certain stuff. We might do like a real short series on nomenclature and jargon and whatnot, because specifically talking about the Middle Eastern stuff, because this is where a lot of people are talking past each other and things are getting lost in translation. Because like, so me and Ibri can like we can talk back and forth. He can say Caucasian about something. I can say Ethiopian about the same thing. Y'all might get lost, but me and him know we're talking about the same exact thing and whatnot, right? And so we need to make sure we're having a conversation where nobody's getting lost and we all understand what's being said and whatnot, and we're all on the same on a level playing field in terms of the jargon and whatnot. Because when he's saying Semitic, he's not saying necessarily descends from Shem in a scholastic sense. It just means a Semitic speaking person at the very least.
I think he should also explain that though, just because he is addressing this community, and so a bit of researching how this community understands what Shemitic means would go a long way in him making that statement. Because I mean, they say it all the time in Dante's chat, on all the different people that talk about Ashkenazi Jews, you know, and not being Semitic. Kind of make that caveat or just define those terms after he's made the statement would have helped.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't disagree. But also to address something that High Praise said, like, so if you like, this is where again, I particularly when dealing with Israelites, it amazes me like the fallacy you run into most is special pleading. Like, so if I apply what you're saying to the Limba, who have more than 10 different haplogroups themselves, they can't like I can't call any of them Semitic, or I can't say any of them descend from Shem. Right? And so this is what I'm saying. Like this, we're coming at this from a whole another so this is not how Jews around the world talk or Israelites around the world talk in any way, shape, or form. Like, which one of y'all descend from Shem? Y'all the real Israelites? Y'all fake it? Like, that's not how they get down. Are y'all part of the nation? Are you keeping the laws? What's going down? Like, are you under the same constitution? That's what they care about, right? But again, if we're going to have even scales, which the scrolls say to have, we got to apply the arguments to them and to us. So or to the Ashkenazi and the Lemba, etc. Right? So when you do so, how does it shake out? When you come to the Americas or whatnot, and you find out the African Americans don't all have one haplogroup. How do you shake that one out? Which one is Shemitic? Which one isn't? And so I see he's saying here, this is why Dante sticks to historical sources in scripture. So you see, he's literally like Dr. Brown literally just cited Dante trying to make a genetic argument against the Ashkenazi. Dante doesn't leave DNA to the wayside. He uses DNA. He uses DNA all the time. He's got a bunch of videos about talking about his DNA on his channel. His DNA drain, all that. You know what I'm saying? So Dante uses DNA, and that's what I'm saying, fam. We have to address these topics without our emotions and be scholastic with them, right? You just heard Dante talk about the fact that Ashkenazi Jews, in terms of a mitochondrial side, go back to four European women and whatnot. You just heard that. You just heard that. So you can't sit there with a straight face and say that Dante only sticks to historical sources in scripture. Stop it.
Dr. Brown
around
opened with
two-
scripture. Just so you know.
thousands.
Yeah, great point. Dr. Brown opened with scripture. I'm not mad at you. He says over and over he's not that DNA guy, but it don't stop him from making genetic arguments, does it? High be praised. Do I gotta pull up his book for you to show you where he's making genetic arguments? I mean, did Dr. Brown did he just not show you where Dante's making genetic arguments? Did you see that with your own eyes or no? This is what I'm saying, fam. You're special pleading and whatnot, fam. You're putting people on pedestals and whatnot. You're doing it. This is literally idolatry right now, fam. We got to treat people with even scales, fam. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. It is what it is, fam. And like again, the even scales is part of the whole Israelite concept that you're trying to say that you uphold and whatnot, bro. So if you're not trying to uphold even scales, you're not trying to uphold the ways of an Israelite, fam. It's that simple. Special, like again, Israelites are not allowed to special plead, bro. Just think about that. We're not allowed to special plead.
Years ago, and later in West and Central Europe, 2,000 years ago, what happened? So as Jerusalem was conquered and destroyed in the year 70, there were tens of thousands of Jews, well, hundreds of thousands killed, but multiplied tens.
Thank you for being honest, the high be praised. I appreciate you, fam. Yes, you did venture into it.
Of thousands who were sent off as slaves, some in ships to Egypt, according to ancient historians. And we know that many as 100,000, posted 96,000, were sent as slaves to Rome. Study Josephus and other historians looking back at that time. So what happened was we were sent as slaves to Rome, and then over time gained our freedom as Jews there. So Middle Eastern Jews now began living in these communities, interacting more with that community. Women now, Italian women in Rome, converting to Judaism, marrying in. So little by little, we begin to take on that skin color and complexion. And then as we move into Europe, Germany, and these other places, now there's even more intermarriages, people converting in. Hence, we become white Jews. Again, it's that simple. Just like these same Middle Eastern Jews exiled to Africa, scattering there after Babylonian captivity and other places and times, intermarry more and more with the African population, you end up with black Jews. It's just how it happened. The skin color is very much secondary. So look at this. The new findings contradict previous assertions that Ashkenazi mitochondrial lineages originated in the Near East, or from mass conversions to Judaism in the Khazar Kingdom, an empire in the North Caucasus region between Europe and Asia, lasting from the 7th century to 11th century, whose leaders adopted Judaism. So it's saying the whole Khazar hypothesis, the Khazarian hypothesis is wrong. It's refuting that as well. And then, quote, we found that most of the maternal lineages don't trace to the North Caucasus, which would be a proxy of the Khazarians, or to the Near East, but most of them emanate from Europe. Let's keep going down. The Ashkenazi Jews make up the majority of Jews today and most recently have ancestry in Central Eastern Europe. Previous work has demonstrated that just 4 mitochondrial types passed down from the foremothers account for 40% of variation in Ashkenazi Jews' mitochondrial DNA, so all through the mother, through the mother, through the mother. To further investigate the matrilineal lines of the Ashkenazi Jews, Richards and colleagues looked at mitochondrial genome sequences in living Jews and non-Jews from the Near East, Europe, and the Caucasus. Based on the results, the team concluded that in contrast to the evidence for many Ashkenazi males whose Y chromosomal DNA suggests a likely origin in the Near East, the female lineage of Ashkenazi Jews has substantial ancestry in Europe. Did you get that? The researchers recognize that when you trace the male lines of Ashkenazi Jews backwards, you find that they have a Middle Eastern, Near Eastern origin going back where to ancient Israel, hence our history, hence our traditions, hence the fact that we have been hated around the world as Jews for centuries. The Ethiopian Jews living in Africa were persecuted by fellow Africans because they were Jews. Ashkenazi Jews living in Europe were persecuted by the surrounding communities because they were Jews. Mizrahi Jews living in the Middle East and Arab countries and Muslim countries over the centuries were persecuted as Jews. This is part of our lived heritage. You have to understand, through most of Jewish history, it's not been a popular thing to identify as a Jew because you're hated for it. You're maligned for it. You're persecuted for it. You're rejected for it. You may be killed for it. You're forced to convert or die or be exiled. This is part of our history. Just like in Nazi Germany, people were not lining up on the road saying, hey, I'm a Jew. No, many were trying to hide their identity because they'd been so assimilated. They were more German than Jewish, but they still died because it was in their blood. It was who they were. So I mentioned the Lemba Jews, and I was going to come back to them. I'm going to come back to them right now. Here is a fascinating article. And check this out for yourself. It is on the Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa. Got that? The Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa. Not some white source, not some contemporary Jewish source in the West. This is within Africa, the Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa, a study from June 2nd, 2020, Culture, Lemba, Bantu people of Southern Africa, the lost Jewish tribe. And here's a picture of these Lemba men in their Jewish garb. Okay, I want to scroll down to a few paragraphs here, and I want to read this to you. This is from the Ubuntu website. According to the Lemba oral tradition, their male ancestors migrated to Southeast Africa in order to obtain gold. after ancestors, notice these words, intermarried with local women and became established in Africa. At some point, the tribe split into two groups.
I had to put that one on your joint, sis. I'm just saying.
I needed that. I wanted to do it earlier. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, my G, for talking about what I just said. So this is exactly what Colleen Hamadisi told me and told Sister E's audience and all that type of stuff, right? That again, they were a group of males that went to Southeast Africa with no females and intermarried with the women there. So everything that Dante is saying that applies to the 4 European women and whatnot, that the Ashkenazi people go back to in terms of like there's a base population and whatnot in Europe and whatnot. The same thing applies to the Lemba population going into West Africa. Like there are thousands upon, or East Africa, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people now. They were less than 12 people when they went into East Africa, to Southeast Africa and whatnot. Now there are thousands upon thousands of, like, do you like the same thing happened there? Man,
Isn't it?
Go ahead. No, you got it.
Isn't this literally part of the Israelite narrative though? Like when they entered into Egypt, didn't Joseph get with an Egyptian?
Oh, say that there. Say that there, bro.
And didn't Moses get with like a Midianite and a Cushite and like all throughout, even the foundation of the Israelites in the Exodus, well, pre-Exodus and Exodus, they were already getting with foreign women, like off the gate. So it's like, I don't see why in exile, the same thing is not going to happen when it already happened even before they became a nation in the Levant.
Are you trying to tell me that there is like 2 tribes in Israel literally based off of intermixture?
Yeah, 2 entire tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, from an Egyptian woman, Asenath.
You shut your black mouth. You shut your black mouth and stop speaking all that truth on this channel.
He trying to stop the awakening.
You trying to give people heart attacks, bro.
See,
yeah.
And what's crazy about this though is like, so what people need to understand is Dante does the same thing. So for my man's right, my man's talking about like, yeah, Dante's ventured into it. Yeah, no, Dante, go watch his videos. He makes the same argument for his DNA. Once he found that he was E1B1B, and found that he can link himself to the two he's like, oh, don't you know the E1B1B is in Levant too, fam? He's doing the same thing that Dr. Brown does, that the Sephardic Jews do, that or the people who trace themselves with J, right? And the Lemba, they're saying, no, you can find J in the Levant. And there's nobody on this stage that's going to argue against it. No, you can find J in the Levant at that time. It just is what it is. It just is what it is, man. Can you also find either? Yes. Does that mean that they both have an equal chance of being a thing? Yep. And so that's as far as either side can take the argument at the moment. It's putting themselves in the Levant. Nobody can say, you know, we go back to Aaron. But that's like, so whether you haplogroup R, haplogroup T, haplogroup E, haplogroup J, the best you can say, fam, is we were in the Levant at this junction. That's the most you can do. And that's why we have this whole mixed multitude model that we talk about, fam. It's not a supremacy thing. And you don't see supremacy in the scrolls like that, fam. And this whole business about trying to make an argument off of someone being a convert, do y'all not understand in any Jewish circle you go into around the world, fam, hanging the concept of someone being a convert over the head is considered to be like one of the biggest like disrespects in the game. You don't do that, fam. You don't remind someone they're a convert once they convert, fam. That whole concept, oh, you're not real because you converted. Oh, word? Like, fam, do you not understand? Like, the nation of Israel is a nation of converts, fam. Abraham was not born practicing the tradition that he ended up practicing when he died. The tradition he taught his children and whatnot, fam. Abraham was a convert to the team, fam. You gonna demarcate Abraham, fam? Stop playing.
Groups, one staying in Ethiopia and the other traveling farther south along the East Coast. So just like Ashkenazi Jews in Europe intermarried with local women who converted into Judaism, the exact same thing happened with the Lemba people. So people from one of the scattered tribes, Israelites, some of them priestly heritage among them, they get into different parts of Africa, women convert, join in, and now they become African in ethnicity and skin color. That's how it happened. But the women intermarrying with Ashkenazi Jews, which seems to be a major thing from Mr. Fortson, this is what's happening around the world. Here, one more paragraph from the study. Members of the priestly clan of the Lemba, the Buba, which is one of 12 tribes, have a genetic element also found among the Jewish priestly line known as Kohanim. This was amazing, Professor Tudor Parfit from the University of London told the BBC. It looks as if the Jewish priesthood continued in the West by people called Kohen, and in the same way, it was continued by the priestly clan of the Lemba. In other words, the same bloodline in these African Jews, in their priestly clan among them, is the same bloodline among Ashkenazi Jews with the last name Kohen, that it also traced back to the priestly line. It connects us. It doesn't separate us. All right, I want to go back to Mr. Fortson and then give a closing response.
We're not the only people saying that something isn't right. All right, so now Kessler said, hey, these people aren't who they claim to be. And then 30 years later, DNA says, hey, these people aren't who they claim to be. And then we keep reading that, okay, these people are European. And remember, go back to the Christian doctrine that we received.
All right, so number one, Kessler has zero to do with the other genetic studies, zero. The other genetic studies refute Kessler, so throw that out. These genetic studies are not saying things are not what they appear to be. They're not saying, they are confirming through the father, the Middle Eastern ancient Israelite identity of Ashkenazi Jews and emphasizing the role of intermarriage with European women who converted into Judaism. Yes, correct, exactly. Hence our white European look. Exactly. This is not rocket science. It's not saying it's not what it really seemed to be. There have been women converting into Judaism, marrying in, going back to Ruth, going back to Rahab, and the same with these Lemba women that married in there. It's exact same process. Nothing new, nothing illegitimate, nothing saying we're not who we claim to be. We're exactly who we claim to be. Okay, one more clip.
Now we're supposed to believe that these people who are called Ashkenaz in the Bible, linked to Japheth in the Bible, called Gentiles in the Bible. The Bible said the Gentiles would be in Jerusalem, occupy Jerusalem, or Jerusalem would be trodden down by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles were fulfilled. We see these people there. We see these people calling themselves by the names of David's descendants, and yet we're not supposed to believe what's happening in front of our face. We're not supposed to believe what we're reading in the book about these people. This is what they tell us. And if we don't believe it, we're making it about race and we're anti-Semitic. The reason they come up with these terms anti-Semitic, and why they work to our advantage in some ways, the reason they come up with these terms is so you're not allowed to question them. Why is there one specific group of people on the planet you're not allowed to question about their claims and origin as to who they are? You can't ask them for evidence. You can't challenge the claims. Otherwise, you're branded as anti-Semitic.
All right, so I'm not branding Mr. Fortson as anti-Semitic. I'm not branding him as that. Never made those comments. I will say the Sakari and other Hebrew Israelites I've dealt with are blatantly anti-Semitic. But let's clarify this. Number one, there is no connection between Ashkenaz descendant of Japhet in Genesis 10, as we showed right at the beginning, and Ashkenazi Jews today. This is the name that was taken because of Gomer, which was associated with Germany, but there's no connection historically, genetically whatsoever. Ashkenazi Jews, descendants of ancient Israel, along with Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Black Jews, and others. And the Ashkenaz in the Bible, the Scythians who disappeared from history a couple thousand plus years ago. That's number one. Number two, no one said you can't question, dig. Open up all the sources. What do you think all these genetic studies do? What do you think these Israeli scholars and Jewish scholars are doing? They're looking, they're searching. By all means, ask questions, dig. Let's do it together. That's fine. But here's where I want to raise a very, very strong and clear word of protest. I'm not angry if a Hebrew Israelite wrongly claims that they are of Jewish background. Maybe a handful are, a minority are, right? But if they're wrongly, I'm not angry with them. I'm not calling them the synagogue of Satan. I'm not blaming them. I'm not. However, the level of hatred unleashed towards us as legitimate Jews, being called fake Jews and everything else, is extraordinary. And the calls to wipe us out, so that Esau is going to be put down and you just watch what's happening and your time is over and you're about to be enslaved. It's ugly. Where's it coming from? You know a tree by its fruit. So we get these by the hour online. Right? And I'm sure the ones I don't see are probably by the second online. You tell me where this comes from if there's not a lot of anti-Semitism behind. Here's just an example of recent posts on our YouTube channel. Dr. Brown, you're a DM. Edomite in captivity is your portion along with your people. Damn synagogue of Satan. Or
Yeah, I don't really care about this last part in the sense where he's going into that anti-Semitic part, because I care about it, but I want to address some things that he was saying about Dante first, right? So what Dante was saying. So Dante was saying that the genetic tests prove that the Jews aren't who they say they are. And there's literally nothing in those genetic tests, in those studies, that say anything to the sort. So this is like what we ran into with like Tazara on Bereans the other day, right? To where like, is it cool just to throw your own stuff in with on top of what the sources are saying, act like the sources are saying what you're saying? No, that's not cool, fam. Your commentary is your commentary, but don't act like they're saying what you're saying, fam. Your commentary is your commentary. Those sources, those studies don't say the Ashkenazi Jews aren't Jews. Nowhere in there does it say that, fam. And so Dante's playing real fast and loose with the sources on that, right? And again, Dr. Brown calls him out completely calls him out on his fallacy with the conflict. Like, oh, see, Ashkenaz. It says Ashkenaz in the Bible, so they're Ashkenazi, so they got to descend from that. Like, bruh, What? That's completely divorced from the scientific studies you're even looking at and referencing yourself in. In the Q&A round, like if like Dante would get murdered in the Q&A round with Brown, he's not as good at deflecting as Alazar is. Like he shows his hand when he deflects or whatnot. And Brown would back him down on a lot of this stuff and be like, nah, man, like, so explain how this eliminates that, blah blah blah. And it's not gonna work. So I want Dante to debate someone like Dr. Brown, so people can understand and see the difference in methodology and whatnot, right? You got lookership and soundership and pseudo scholarship versus actual methodology and whatnot. Pseudo scholarship and special pleading is not scholarship. It's not something to be proud of, and it's not something that's ever going to be scholastically respected. And so that's the thing. If you want your thing to be respected, okay, like there's a certain way to go about it, so like the world respects what you're talking about. Man. But like, if you come to people with the Santa Claus story, people like, why would you respect that? It doesn't make any sense. Man. I'm letting him finish up right here. Do you want to say anything, Ibri? Sorry.
No, I'm good.
For Esau, you're finished. You didn't correct or confront anybody. You're an Edomite and your time is up. And all these black people that's under here cheering you on and cheering their enemy on will pay too. These Edomites are finished. And this man is of the devil. White man can't be a Jew. And the Jewish man is the chief house of Satan. And this is how a slithering snake works. He'll say something slick out of his mouth, and then when the official ancestor of Hebrew descent starts calling in, suddenly he has to slither out to see the true Hebrews didn't have to learn this because it's in our DNA. Those scriptures are our history books. But you can keep lying all you want to, bro, but you know you are exposed. If you don't repent, you're going to be held accountable by the Most High for your lies and deception. You're a little too old to keep playing with the word of God. You can't stop this reawakening of the true children of Israel. The Most High will move you out of the way. You have been warned. Dr. Brown, concerning your answer to why Hitler persecuted you people was because he knew that they were imposing the Jew identity. This is why he persecuted them, stealing the identity of the Israelites. You know it. Can't wait to wipe your AZZ off your piece of blank. Earth has enough of you pale-skinned terrorists. We get this day and night, this ugly, ugly trash. I'm not mad at these people. I pity them. I pity their lostness. I pity their anger. I pity their hatred. But Mr. Fortson, you have to understand this is out there. An animosity towards my Jewish people. And why are we sensitive? Because we have suffered wholesale slaughter. Just like you are rightly sensitive to the whitewashing of American history that downplays the ugliness of the slave trade, or that ignores the horrors of the Middle Passage and the kidnapping of a people and the robbing of their identity and history. Just like anything in our history books that whitewashes that or downplays the significance, you'd be sensitive to. Well, the same way with our people being slaughtered, with 3 million out of 3.3 million Jews in Poland being wiped out in the Holocaust, with 1.5 million Jewish babies and children being slaughtered in cold blood, with 2 out of 3 of all European Jews being wiped out in cold blood. And to this day, both white supremacists and black supremacists hate the same people in America. That's right, we Jews.
So what y'all says, is it true that the Rothschilds are Ashkenazi and bought some of the land of Jerusalem from Ottoman, or that's pseudo? What does that have? Like, so let's say everything you just said is 100% factual, right? I'm not even saying it is or it's not. Let's just say it's 100% factual, right? What does that have to do with proving that Ashkenazi Jews are descendants from Ashkenaz, the biblical patriarch of that group of people? It doesn't, bro. It doesn't. And that's what I'm saying, fam. You're not making a scholastic argument, fam. That's the whole point. Like, so if there's a point on the table, right? If Dante's saying, I'm arguing that Ashkenazi Jews descend from Ashkenaz, what is talking about a modern group of people in terms of like the Rothschilds and buying land in Jerusalem have to do with proving the claim that Ashkenazi Jews descend from Ashkenaz? It doesn't. No, that's not your side question, my G, because you said is that pseudo? And so I was making reference to what people were talking about in terms of pseudo arguments and whatnot. Yeah. I'm asking a question now. It was a thought I had from a while ago. Okay, cool. What's that got to do with the conversation in any way, shape, or form? It's nothing. It's not separate to the point. Exactly. Brown out here cooking, fam. Brown out here on this hibachi thing.
Jews. There is sensitivity there. So by all means, investigate, study, understand, but do so in a way that produces love. I have an increased love for those who identify as Hebrew Israelite, which I understand is a big camp. I have an increased love for the Sakari. I pray for them. I'm on my knees saying, God, how can I reach these people with the news of liberation and salvation and transformation through Yeshua? And as a Jew by blood as well, I welcome Black Jews. I welcome African Jews. And where you've been slighted by the Jewish community in America, hey, as a Jewish follower of Jesus, I get rejected too. I'm not mad at you. And those who falsely claim to be Israelites, I'm not mad at you. Don't be mad at you, even if you think I'm mistaken. The fact that there's this anger, there's this hatred, the fact that in response to teachings like this, it often opens a Pandora's box of ugly, false accusations, that should be a cause for reflection. That being said, Mr. Fortson, if you do happen to watch this video, it's not attacking you. I hope you have been respectful throughout. I'd be happy to dialogue privately or publicly, or if you thought it would be constructive, this is not a challenge. If you thought it would be constructive to have a look at the scriptures and to see, do the scriptures teach that the Israelites were originally Black? If you'd like to do that, then it would be constructive, a formal public debate. I'd be happy to. If you want to talk privately, great. If it's not worth your time, may God bless you. You're not mad at me. And if you have Jewish blood, you're a Jewish brother. If you know Jesus, Yeshua, Savior, you're a brother in the way that matters the most.
My mom passed away in.
Yo, after they showed this on Berean, I was like, yeah, I gotta go live. I gotta just do it, because if I plan it, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. I would really like to see Dante get in the ring with Dr. Brown and whatnot, because I don't think so. People have this air of Dante that he's really scholastic and whatnot because he reads sources on lives and whatnot. And this is where we're going through the same thing with Tazarah and understudies have said, man, to where you can read, like Benaiah reads sources, Dante reads sources, Tazarah reads sources. But do you even know what you're reading? Are you coming out with a cogent argument for what you're reading? Are you representing the source material properly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What's your methodology? How are you applying your methodology, right? And again, so there's scholastic methodology, and then there's what a lot of people see on YouTube, which is just lookership, soundership, pseudo scholarship. Bruh. See, this is the coldest part. This is why I'm laughing, because, bruh, you know, Yeshua, you understand, you already know Dr. Brown finna pull out some E1B1B stuff on you. You already know what it is, bruh. And he's gonna be like, well, can you show me the West African population that got your E1B1B? And he's gonna be crickets. Crickets. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to count. What you saying, Avery? What you saying, Shard?
No, I'm down for seeing the debate. I like to see. I like this idea of people debating the Israelite hypothesis, whether African Americans potentially could have Israelite ancestry. I really like seeing that from scholars, especially Jewish, and especially if we get into DNA in terms of the debate. I want to see more of this, actually. I want to see more debates between scholars and Hebrew Israelites concerning this Israelite thing.
Hebrew, I want to turn this into a teacher one moment right quick. This is what we were talking about last night when I was talking about we need to, we can't speak generally about just E1B1A and E1B1B anymore. We got to get into the breakdown and stuff so people understand what it is. So Dante is not just E1B1B, right? So this man's like Laban's saying he can say it goes back to the Fulani Mende. Bruh. He got E1B1B. Sure, you can find E1B1B amongst the Fulani, amongst the Mende, and some other people whatnot. But do they have his E1B1B? Are they EM84, fam? So if they're EM78, EM81, does that help them? No. No. Exactly. He's not just EM123. He's a downwards. He's a subplate of that joint. He's EM84, fam. So, yeah, you tell me, my G, which specific group of West Africans oh yeah, you can find EM84 all day right there. So he's literally paternally closer to Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardic Jews, etc., than he is African Americans. And it's just that the majority of African Americans. It's just that simple. Every shot he's taking Ashkenazi Jews, he's taking again, and their paternal ancestry, he's taking a shot at himself. He's taking a whole shot at himself.
I'd love to see that debate too, or that dialogue, whatever they end up settling on. Hopefully not a private discussion, because that would be nice to actually watch. Yeah, I hope. I can't wait to see Dante's response to this video. I thought Dr. Brown did pretty well, except for the things noted throughout this video. But I gotta hop off here. I'm getting sleepy and I gotta get up early in the morning. But thank you all for coming. Thank you, Ivory. Thank you, Moore, for showing up on the live.
Yes,
Uh,
man.
Shalom and good night.
Shalom, fam.
Shalom,
Yeah.
shalom. Yeah.
Uh,